Chapter 2073. That's good. There are still a lot of good people in this world. The old man in green sighed. I just came out for a stroll, and someone was willing to give me a piece of purple crystal jade essence. This young man has a bright future. Gu Xinwu really wanted to spit on this shameless person's face. Just came out for a stroll? Willing to give it to you? There are so many good people, why didn't anyone give it to me? Gu Xinwu was crying. The old man turned around and left. Senior. Gu Xinwu was anxious and hurriedly shouted. What? The old man in green turned around and frowned. My neck. Gu Xinwu pointed at his twisted neck, tears flowing down. My neck was twisted. You actually want to leave without letting me recover? What's wrong with your neck? The old man in green looked at him in surprise. This kind of twisted neck is hard to get even if other people want it. What's wrong with you? Are you blaming your father for not giving birth to you? No. Gu Xinwu knelt down. Please have mercy on me, senior. There's really no other way. The old man in green flashed. Put. A crisp sound rang out. Brother who was on the roof could bet that this sound would definitely spread through the entire city and reach 10 miles away. A quick and sharp slap landed on Gu Xinwu's face. This slap was aimed to the left. Gu Xinwu's head was flung out like a ball on a string. At this moment, his neck actually curled up, as if it had infinite elasticity. It lengthened in a straight line, bringing his head in a circle in the air before it fell back to its original position with a click. However, the old man in green had already disappeared. At this moment, Gu Xinwu finally let out a heart-wrenching scream. No matter if he was beaten or twisted, he didn't feel any pain during the whole process. Until now, all the accumulated pain suddenly exploded out. Tears flowed down his face, and he was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. However, it had to be said that Gu Xinwu's neck was originally about the same as a normal person's, but after this incident, it directly turned into a giraffe. It actually increased his height by half a foot. A sigh came from the sky. At such an age, she actually grew. Puberty is really late. She developed really late. Gu Xinwu let out a heart-wrenching scream. It was so painful, the two masters beside him didn't dare to make a sound. They carried Gu Xinwu on their backs and disappeared. Gu Xinwu was extremely sad. Until now, he still thought that the other party was here to rob him. But he had never thought that he would encounter such misfortune just because he had offended Chu Yang. Brother Hu's eyes twitched as he watched from the rooftop. This old man is really strong. It was simply too strong. Even if Brother Hu's cultivation was fully restored, he would not be able to withstand one of his hands. Wasn't this a little too high? But who was this old man? No one would know about this. Since Gu Xinwu had already been taught a lesson, Brother Hu didn't want to take any more risks. Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly let out a meow and widened his eyes. The purple crystal jade essence that had clearly been taken away by the old man had been placed behind his but at some point, emitting a sparkling purple light. This old man had tormented the purple crystal jade essence that people had willingly given out, but he didn't want it. He threw it behind his butt? What was going on? Brother Hu's eyes widened. He felt even more confused. No matter who this old man was, it seemed that his real goal was only to teach Gu Xinwu a lesson. He didn't want the purple crystal jade essence. In addition, this old man had already discovered him and knew that he had come for the purple crystal energy. So he placed the purple crystal jade essence beside him. Brother Hu was confused for a while before shaking his head. No matter who it is, this purple crystal jade essence is good stuff. Looking at the purple crystal jade essence in front of him, Brother Hu was really hesitant. Should he give it back to Chu Yang? Or should he just stuff it into his own pocket? He had already sold it. Now someone else gave it to me. Isn't that the same as me dropping it? Thinking this, Brother Hu felt relaxed and happy. He opened his mouth with a clear conscience. Four claws hugged the purple crystal jade essence. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A cloud of mist rose up. In the next moment, the entire purple crystal jade essence had disappeared, leaving behind only a gray powder. Brother Hu wiped his mouth and disappeared with satisfaction. After it disappeared, The old man in green suddenly appeared in the air and landed where Brother Hu was. He frowned and thought for a while. What kind of spirit beast is this? How come I have never seen it before? It's really interesting. My original intention was to let this guy take the purple crystal jade essence back, but this guy actually ate it. Brother Hu had completely misunderstood the old man's intentions. The old man had snatched it back to give it back to Chu Yang. After all, Gu Xinwu had been forced to buy it. The old man didn't want to take advantage of it. Since this little cat had followed Chu Yang, he would let it take it back. But he didn't expect that Brother Hu would treat it as an ownerless item and eat it at lightning speed. In the auction hall, Hai Lianbo was in a dilemma. Since he introduced it, there shouldn't be any problem with this transaction. We won't ask any more. There must be a reason for General Yan's actions. Hai Xiaobo was a little embarrassed. After asking so many questions, he ended up asking about the authorities. It was as if he had used all his strength to punch a mountain that could not be shaken. The authorities of the Eastern Royal Immortal Realms had always been wary of such things. At this point, Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. They had won the battle. As long as these two people believed it, it meant that everyone believed it. And from now on, no one would dare to find trouble with this auction hall. Well, at least for the time being. It was no wonder that Chu Yang was so careful and cautious. It was really an empty shell now. He really didn't have any confidence. Yes, thank you, Divine Dr. Chu, for telling us frankly and resolving our doubts. It's just that Xue Xian and I have another matter to discuss with you. Hai Minbo heaved a sigh of relief. In addition to recovering his previous amiability, there was more caution in his tone. Originally, he thought that he just had to mention this matter. If Chu Yang didn't know what was good for him and didn't agree, then he could just take him away by force. But now, it seemed that it was impossible to take him away by force. Not to mention other things, if Yen Russian knew that Hai Lianbo used force on his savior, he definitely wouldn't let him go easily. Yen Russian represented the official power behind him. Even if it was just Yen Russian's influence, even Hai Lianbo had to think twice. He might not dare to provoke them. The most important thing was that it was really not worth it to provoke such a power. Chu Yang said, "Elder, you're too polite. May I know what you want to discuss? Please say it. As long as it's within my ability, I won't let you down." Well, the second battle had begun. A big fish was about to take the bait. Chu Yang's words were respectful and his face was gentle. But in his heart, he felt like a fisherman who saw a big fish swallowing the bait. "I'll kill you." Hai Lianbo pondered for a while and decided to be honest. He said in a low voice, "During the auction, there were two young men in white who went up the stage with swords. I want to accept those two young men as my younger brothers. I wonder if Divine Dr. Chu is willing to part with them." Chu Yang's eyes instantly lit up. He said, "Accept them as your younger brothers? Does Senior mean to take the two of them into the Soaring Firmament sect?" Yes, that's right." Hai Lianbo was a little surprised. Why is this Divine Dr. Chu so excited? But no matter what, it doesn't seem like he's unwilling. Great Elder Hai was worried about personal gains and losses at this moment. He was afraid that Chu Yang would reject him, which would put him in a dilemma and make him unable to choose. Chu Yang's face was full of excitement. He chuckled and said, "This? Old Hai, since you've taken a fancy to them, it's naturally their good fortune that you've taken a fancy to them. It's just that, since you're going to accept disciples, then there's no harm in accepting a few more, right?" Hai Lianbo was stunned and said subconsciously, "Yes, it's okay. But their aptitudes must be okay. If they're too bad." He thought, what's wrong with this guy? Why can't I see what he's going to do? What's going on? That's good. That's great. Chu Yang said fervently, "Elder Hai, my aptitudes are okay, right? Can I also be accepted as your disciple?" Hai Lianbo was stunned by Chu Yang's sudden self-recommendation. He never thought that Chu Yang would suddenly say such a thing. Although he had some understanding of Chu Yang's background and recent experiences, he didn't have any direct impression of Chu Yang's strength and aptitudes. Until now, he still didn't check it. He had carefully checked his aptitudes. Elder Hai took a casual glance and saw that there wasn't much spiritual energy gathered around Great Divine Dr. Chu. He roughly judged that this person's aptitudes were also limited. If it was in normal times, he would directly refuse. But now that he had a request, he couldn't directly refuse. He frowned and said, "It's our sect's honor that Divine Dr. Chu thinks so highly of us. Divine Dr. Chu, please extend your hand. Let me see if your aptitudes are suitable." He thought, if it's okay, it's also not bad to accept Lingxiao clan. At least I can bring along 2 more geniuses. This deal isn't a loss. Even if it's a bit rubbish, I'll accept it. At least this Divine Dr. Chu is Yen Russian's savior. He's very useful. Not to mention that he has good medical skills. Yes, he specializes in curing diseases. Chu Yang stretched out his hand happily. "Elder Hai, you're good looking, right? When I was down there, many people said that I'm a genius among geniuses. My cultivation speed is amazingly fast. If you accept me into Lingxiao clan, I'll definitely be able to bring Lingxiao clan to greater heights." Before he finished his words, he saw that Hai Lianbo, who was pressing on his wrist, had a change of expression. Chapter 2074. Hai Xiaobo was still feeling Chu Yang's pulse with one hand. Without any warning, his eyes popped out. If not for his eye sockets, his eyeballs would have definitely flown out. His mouth also flattened without a care for his image. The muscles on his face twitched so much that even his nose tilted to one side. It was obvious that he had received a huge shock. Beside him, Xue Xian frowned and thought, could it be that Chu Yang's aptitude is so strong that it defies the natural order? Even Hai Xiaobo is so shocked. If that's the case, his aptitude is definitely not inferior to Mo Qingwu's. If that's the case, how can I let the soaring firmament faction take advantage of him? Can't my dreamlike veranda accept a disciple? But why can't I see it? Why can't there be any signs of gathering spiritual energy? Could it be that it's the kind of hidden potential that can only be determined by taking the pulse? It must be so. Otherwise, Hai Xiaobo wouldn't be so shocked. Thinking of this, Xue Xian waved her snow-white sleeves. Her slender hand also touched Chu Yang's pulse. She used her martial energy to take a look. Immediately, Xue Xian's delicate body trembled. Her pair of bright phoenix eyes also opened wide. Her small mouth also opened wide and couldn't close. That way, there wasn't much difference between him and Great Elder Hai. Shocking, truly shocking. It was really too shocking. Chu Yang said proudly, "How is it? Shocking, right? My aptitude has shocked you, right? With my aptitude, no matter if I enter the dreamlike secular pavilion or the high firmament gate, I will definitely be the core disciple. I will be heavily nurtured. Let me tell you one more thing. My cultivation speed is extremely fast. I can definitely reach the highest level in the shortest amount of time. Really, this is not boasting." Hai Xiaobo and Xue Xian stared blankly at someone's mouth opening and closing. They just couldn't understand what they were feeling in their hearts. He's trash to such an extent. Trash to such an extent. And he's still blowing his own trumpet, bragging as if his life depended on it. Fuck. The two cursed in their hearts at the same time. They couldn't take it anymore. They really couldn't take it anymore. With your aptitude, you actually want to become a core disciple? Important disciple? Important. If that's really the case, wouldn't it be the same as wasting money? But you might as well paddle in the water and float in the water. At least you can make some splashes. With your aptitude, even if you use all the miraculous medicines in the entire Heaven Imperial Court on you, you will never become an expert in your lifetime. Accepting you as a disciple is a disgrace that has never been seen before and will never be seen in the future. The sea will dry up and the rocks will rot, the sky will fall and the earth will crack. I really didn't think. Hai Xiaobo let go of his hand and sighed. There is actually such a talent in this world. I really didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. Xue Xian also retracted her hand and sighed. The wonders of the heavens' creation are indeed uncanny and uncanny. How is it? Chu Yang asked hopefully, Masters, who do you intend to make me worship under? If you really find me pleasing to the eye, I wouldn't mind taking me as your disciple as well. But we mind. This was what both of them were thinking at the moment. Cough cough, little brother, with your aptitude, it's more suitable for you to become Old Hai's disciple. Our sect is a female-oriented sect after all. Accepting you as our disciple will only delay your talent, Xue Xian said hurriedly. At this juncture, she couldn't back down. If these words were heard by others, they might be shocked to the core. The dignified dreamlike veranda, the most proud and arrogant dreamlike veranda, actually admitted that it was inferior to a certain sect. However, at this moment, it was already a critical moment for him to decide whether he would die or not. Xue Xian didn't even blink and pushed the soaring cloud faction out. No, no, no. Hai Mingbo kept shaking his head. Seeing that Xue Xian didn't care about the code of brotherhood, he was so anxious that sweat started to appear on his forehead. With my little cultivation base, how can I be Brother Chu's master? Such a great talent, only a senior like Xue Xian is qualified to teach him. In the cultivation world, the one who reaches the top is the most important. The most important thing is cultivation base. Male or female, it doesn't matter. It's not that I don't want to, but I'm just afraid that I will delay Brother Chu's future. They didn't expect Great Elder Hai to be so shameless. Although his cultivation wasn't as good as Xue Xian's, they were of the same generation. In order to get rid of someone, he directly defined Xue Xian as a senior. This sacrifice was really big. At this point, both of them looked at each other fiercely. At the same time, they cursed in their hearts. This bastard really doesn't care about loyalty. Then, Chu Yang was full of hope as he said, "Who should I follow? This choice is too difficult. This is a heaven-sent opportunity, but it gave me two choices. It's too difficult for me to follow my brother's love and lose my sister-in-laws. It's too difficult for you?" Both of them lowered their heads in pain. Follow who? No matter who you fucking follow, you're destined to be a super useless snack. Not to mention giving you cultivation resources, even giving you a mouthful of food would be a super waste. That's a crime. A crime against the clan. A crime against cultivation. Xue Xian had completely given up on him. She heard from Mo Qingwu that this Chu Yang's cultivation speed was super fast. Sigh, if it's such a super fast cultivation method, he's indeed a genius. Without a doubt, he's a super genius who's second to none among the trash. He's worthy of the title of a peerless king among the trash. Cough cough cough. Hai Lianbo coughed for a long time before he said, "This? The divine Dr. Chu." Cough cough cough. Your aptitude is a bit special. Special? Chu Yang said in surprise. Is it super good? It must be. Hai Lianbo looked up at the sky with grief and indignation. He took 3 deep breaths and said, "Yes, but it's super good. But we really can't accept you as a disciple. It's because your aptitude is too good. I'm afraid that you'll be held back if you follow us. I've thought about it. Not only me, even Xue Xian isn't qualified to teach you." Hai Lianbo's tone was very respectful. He even used you. He couldn't be disrespectful. Fuck, Hai Lianbo scolded angrily in his heart. It's really a lucky day for us to meet such a genius that only appears once in 30 million years. How can I not be respectful? If I don't respect him, what if he sticks to me? This is a big matter that will bring shame to the clan and the entire Lingxiao clan. What's a personal honor? Fuck, such a physique is simply a super character that has never appeared in the history of mankind. When I meet such a person, I can't help but admire the wonders of God's creation from the bottom of my heart. Hold me back? Chu Yang said thoughtfully, "It seems that my aptitude is really amazing?" "Yes, it's unprecedented since ancient times. You're definitely the only one in the world." Hai Lianbo's words were absolutely from the bottom of his heart. Ha ha. Chu Yang laughed heartily from the bottom of his heart. He laughed heartily. Xue Xian's mouth couldn't help but twitch, then twitch again, then twitch again. Finally, she couldn't help but turn her head away. It was really unbearable. Normally, Elder Hai's words of "not qualified" would make Xue Xian turn hostile. But now, it was better to take a break. She even had to accept Elder Hai's kindness. As long as she could get rid of this super trouble, so what if she wasn't qualified? But in other words, To successfully train such a genius, it seemed that she really wasn't qualified enough. It wasn't slander. Chu Yang, who enjoyed the supreme evaluation, made a decision. Come, let Jin Feng and Yin Feng in. Oh, let them all come in. There's no room for selection with only 2. All right, remember to let a few girls come in too. Dreamlike Hongshan Pavilion focuses on female disciples. As he spoke, he turned to Shui Xian and Hai Lianbua and said, to be honest, I have a lot of such kids here. If you like them, you can choose a few more. It's just that 2 of them are really not presentable. He sighed and said, I only gave you 2 people because you came once. I, Chu Yang, am also a person who wants face. I really can't afford to lose face like this. Hai Lianbua and Shui Xian's mouth twitched. You're fucking bullshit. It's already a great fortune for a sect to meet one of such geniuses. This time we met 2 of them at once. This is already unprecedented. You actually want us to choose a few more? Do you think they're cabbages? If it weren't for those 2 kids, if it weren't for your good luck of having Yen Russian as your backer, just based on your trashy physique and dirtying our eyes, you would have died 10 times over. You can't even afford to lose face like this. With your aptitude, you still want face? Face? I'm really speechless. But his mouth was full of agreement. Of course, if there's someone with suitable aptitude, we naturally can't ask for anything more. It's good to have a few more choices. As he spoke, there was a commotion outside. Then someone said, Clan Master, they're here. Shall we let them in? Yes, all of them come in, Chu Yang said arrogantly. Then light footsteps were heard. 5 white-robed young men and 5 white-robed young girls walked in one by one with their heads lowered. They were all about 11 or 12 years old. The oldest one was no more than 13 or 14 years old. Although it could not be said that all of them were very handsome, at the very least, their small faces were rosy and healthy. As the 10 of them walked in, Shui Xian and Hai Lianbua could clearly feel that the spiritual energy in the living room was slowly becoming active. Just this spiritual energy fluctuation alone was enough to prove that there were quite a few of these kids who seemed to be extraordinary. Yes, could there really be a few of them with great potential? Both of them put down their teacups and turned to look. Chu Yang introduced attentively. Seniors, please take a look at my 5 little brothers. What do you think of their aptitudes? I think their aptitudes should be quite good. Even if they're not as good as me, they should be the best. Hai Lianbua and Shui Xian didn't say anything. Because they were shocked again. Because they were already so shocked that they couldn't say a word. They were almost suspecting that they were dreaming. But even if they were dreaming, there definitely wouldn't be such a beautiful dream. This dream was too beautiful. It was too unreal. Chapter 2075. If that was all, Chu Yang's impression of this person would probably be that he valued him very much. However, this person's aura, composure, and the special feeling that everything was under his control were actually similar to the feeling that Mo Tianji gave him. In fact, it was even better than that. This person was definitely not to be trifled with. At least, not in the short term. Chu Yang made this judgment in his heart and secretly became somewhat vigilant. Opponent. Beside the white-robed man stood a black-robed young man. This young man in black was also not very old, looking about 27 or 28 years old. He was dressed in black as ink. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright. The contours of his face were as if they were carved by a knife. The lines were so rigid that it gave people a feeling of uncanny workmanship. This face seemed to be made with a mold. It did not look natural at all, but it was indeed natural. Although thin and weak, it gave people the feeling of a tough man. This person also had his hands behind his back. A pair of cold eyes looked at Chu Yang. Those 2 cold eyes fell on Chu Yang's face. It actually made Chu Yang feel as if there were actual needles pricking him. His face faintly hurt. This person gave him the feeling that he was a combination of Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang. Sharp and heavy. It was just that the feeling that Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang gave him was that of someone who could entrust their lives to each other. But the feeling that the person in front of him gave him was a kind of awkwardness and discomfort from the bottom of his heart. Although he was smiling at this moment, and it was the kind of smile that came from the bottom of his heart. But Chu Yang could still feel waves of coldness in his heart, and a kind of coldness that was like a kind of killing intent. This person, whether now or in the future, would not be on the same path as him. This person was quite scary. Chu Yang also came to a conclusion about the second person in his heart, opponent. The last person was a young man dressed in purple. Purple had always been a color that symbolized natural nobility, but not everyone could wear purple clothes. However, when this person wore it, it complemented each other perfectly, as if it was a natural combination. This person's eyebrows were a little thick. His nose was not very straight either. Even his skin was a little dark. But he gave people the feeling that he was a rich and powerful man who looked down on the world with a smile. Extremely carefree and at ease. It was as if there was nothing in the world that he couldn't do. There was nothing that he couldn't do. At this moment, there was a smile in his eyes as he looked at Chu Yang quietly. This person gave Chu Yang the feeling that he was the most dangerous of the three. He felt as if he was facing Meng Luo and Du Shao at the same time in the third heaven. From this third person, Chu Yang made a final conclusion: opponent. He was an extremely threatening opponent. This kind of situation where he could determine whether he was an enemy or a friend was not rare in Chu Yang's life. Chu Yang wasn't a jealous person, but he had an incomprehensible intuition about the opponents he was about to face. He couldn't explain it in words. An opponent was an opponent. An enemy is an enemy. A friend is a friend. Brothers are brothers. There was nothing to explain. However, Chu Yang himself might not have realized it. In this world, there were not many people who were qualified to be recognized by him as his opponent. Diwu Qingru of the lower three heavens was one of them. Du Shao and the others of the third heaven could barely be regarded as his opponents. But their level was too low. The Dharma King of the upper three heavens was also the former think tank of the calamity, Diwu Chochang. And Chu Yang recognized him very much. Apart from him, Chu Yang didn't have any other opponents. Senior brother Shi Qianshan and the extremely powerful extraterrestrial demon might have the strength to threaten Chu Yang's life. But they weren't qualified to be Chu Yang's opponents. Being regarded as Chu Yang's opponent was a great honor for a person. That was because he wasn't inferior to anyone. Chu Yang was so outstanding that even he himself hadn't realized it. Unfortunately, Chu Yang himself hadn't realized this fact that was worthy of being proud of. So, it was needless to say about these three people standing opposite him. But these three special people had appeared in front of him. And they had appeared here. The real opponents that Chu Yang had to face in the Heavenly Imperial Court had finally appeared, the first wave. These three people were standing on the street. They blended in perfectly with everything around them. But they were also out of place at the same time. It seemed as if they were lotus blooming in the mud without being stained. They also seemed as if the bright moon in the sky had arrived in the world. Harmonious and detached. While Chu Yang was sizing up these three people were sizing him up as well. This young man in black walked over calmly from the other side. His movement speed wasn't very fast. But the distance between each step was perfectly balanced. In the eyes of these three people, Chu Yang seemed to leave a clear mark on the ground with each step he took. When he walked over step by step, although there weren't any marks left on the ground, in the eyes of these three people, there were two neat rows of footsteps. The direction and distance of the first step and the second step were exactly the same. There wasn't even a millimeter of difference. The direction and distance of the heels of this step and the second step were exactly the same. The direction of the toes of the feet were exactly the same. The distance covered by each step was exactly the same. There wasn't even a millimeter of difference. He walked over just like that. But he was like the most precise machine. There wasn't any deviation at all. Not even the slightest deviation would appear. The gazes of these three people gradually became cautious, serious, and solemn. From these neat footsteps, the three people felt a sense of pressure from their hearts at the same time. It was a kind of pressure that could suffocate the heart and make it stop beating. But none of the three people said it out loud. They continued to observe Chu Yang. The material of his black clothes was very unique. It didn't look like the traditional clothes of the Heaven Imperial Court. But it was very fitting. Yes, there seemed to be a slight protrusion at the hem of his black robe. It didn't look like there was a weapon hidden there. But there was definitely something else. This person's eyes were very clear and pure. But the divine light in his eyes was constant. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, as if he was smiling at any time. But only those who were completely clear about this face would know. A person with such a face, if they were to become enemies with him, how vicious would his attacks be? He would never give his enemy any chance. His eyes were very bright. The black and white of his eyes were very distinct. There wasn't even a trace of blood in them. This kind of person kept himself in the most complete state of consciousness at all times. His feet were moving. His arms were also moving. From every strand of his hair to the soles of his feet, his entire body was in a natural harmony. He didn't need to be on guard intentionally. But his most normal posture was already the most perfect defense. He could adjust all the functions of his body to the most suitable position at any time, any place, in any kind of unexpected situation. Whether it was attacking or defending, he could do it as he pleased. Although his every move seemed to be careless, in fact, it was a kind of strong confidence that only people with extreme confidence could have. It was the kind of strong confidence that everything is under my control. This kind of person had always been the most difficult to deal with. At the same time, the three people opposite him came to such a conclusion about Chu Yang. These observations and discoveries about each other sounded very long. But, in fact, this process was very short. Almost at the moment when the two sides met, everyone had an evaluation of each other. As highly intelligent people, and also the top experts in each other's fields, everyone clearly believed in one thing. The accuracy of determining friend or foe at first sight was absolutely as high as 10%. Everyone was a confident person. They firmly believed that they wouldn't make a mistake. If their first impression was wrong, it would be tantamount to a disaster for such people. Because they were very stubborn. They stubbornly believed in their first impression. Chu Yang stopped at a distance of 20 feet away from the three people. This distance was very subtle. If he were to ask a question from 30 feet away, there would be a sense of distance. But at this distance, there was no distinction between friend and foe. It was enough to go up and be intimate. But it seemed that it was also enough to go up and kill. It was enough for ordinary people. The three people revealed an inexplicable smile in their eyes. They were very clear that the person in front of them had given the choice to the three of them whether they were friend or foe. But such a choice was somewhat uncomfortable for the three of them. They usually gave this choice to others. Since when was it someone else's turn to make a choice? Let you make a choice or let me make a choice? These were two completely different things. One was active, and the other was passive. Obviously, these people weren't used to being passive. But now, they were in front of Chu Yang's house. Chu Yang was acting as the master. The three of them had no choice but to accept it. Otherwise, the following topic wouldn't be able to be discussed. Just as the three of them were unwilling, but they had no choice but to open their mouths first, a warm and genial smile suddenly appeared on Chu Yang's face. At this moment, under the influence of his smile, the gate of the Chu clan seemed to have suddenly turned into spring. It was intoxicating. May I ask who the three of you are? Ah. Chu Yang's eyes seemed to be smiling. The three of you have brought light to my humble home. Could it be that you've been waiting for me? I'm flattered, I'm really flattered. The unbelievably handsome young man smiled, revealing a row of snow-white teeth. It actually made people's eyes light up. Well, if your name is Chu Yang, then the three of us brothers are here to look for you. Chu Yang laughed and said cordially, "It's an honor to have the three of you come in person. It's really an honor." As he said, he winked ambiguously and mischievously and said, "But I think that it's better for us to talk inside?" As he said, he winked again and said, "Look, with three handsome men like you standing in front of my house, many young ladies and young wives can't walk. I'm afraid that there will be many more bachelors in our purple cloud city. It's really a sin." Chapter 2076. He gently hugged Wu Qianxian's naked body in his arms. He thought for a while and didn't want to put her down. Instead, he quickly took off his clothes as well. At this moment, the two of them were completely naked. Chu Yang held Wu Qianqian in his arms and slowly activated the power of his life dantian. A surging life force slowly appeared and lingered around the two of them. Then, Chu Yang put the super heavy pill in his mouth and placed it against Wu Qianqian's small mouth. He gently used the tip of his tongue to pry open Wu Qianqian's unconscious teeth and sent the super heavy pill into her mouth. The super heavy pill melted in Wu Qianqian's mouth after it was no longer wrapped by Chu Yang's heaven-splitting divine technique. It turned into a warm current and flowed into Wu Qianqian's body. The super heavy pill melted in her mouth and saved her a lot of trouble. At the same time, Chu Yang didn't move his lips away because the majestic vitality was flowing into Wu Qianqian's mouth from his mouth. Their bodies were in close contact. Chu Yang's vitality and spiritual power were madly pouring into Wu Qianqian's body. With a slight sound, Wu Qianqian's and Chu Yang's hair flew up due to the surging power of vitality. They floated in the air. A faint layer of redness gradually appeared on Wu Qianqian's snow-white body. The enormous medicinal efficacies rapidly passed through her body in an unstoppable manner. They broke open the stagnant meridians in her body and almost solidified them. This process would undoubtedly be extremely painful if Wu Qianqian was awake. However, she wasn't awake at the moment. She didn't even have the slightest consciousness. In a sense, this could be considered a blessing in disguise. Now, she could only passively let the meridians in her body continuously receive the impact. With the powerful impact of the enormous medicinal power, her meridians were constantly broken but were constantly being reformed by the medicinal power. This cycle repeated. This violent process didn't stop because of the serious blockage of her meridians. Although the process was slow, it progressed layer by layer. There was no sign of slowing down. Chu Yang's divine sense followed the continuous progressive and reforming process in Wu Qianqian's body. He saw cold sweat all over his body. If a person was conscious, or even in a deep coma, such pain would be unbearable. However, as long as the person was conscious, they would definitely not be able to endure it. The unconscious Wu Qianqian was lying quietly in Chu Yang's arms. Her face still had that kind of contented and melancholy smile on it. It was a peaceful and concerned smile. Finally, this long and painful process came to an end. All the meridians in Wu Qianqian's body had been completely connected. Or, it should be said that her meridians had been completely reorganized. Wu Qianqian's meridians were now like an incomparably smooth road with the help of the enormous medicinal efficacy and the nourishment of Chu Yang's vitality energy. It could be said that since the beginning of human history, there was absolutely no one whose meridians were smoother than Wu Qianqian's. Even Mo Qinggu and Chu Yang, who had cultivated the heaven-overlapping divine technique and had many fortuitous encounters, could not compare in this aspect. However, Wu Qianqian's body was still deathly still. There was no sign of life. It could be faintly felt that the vitality energy and the medicinal efficacy were surging in her meridians. And there was also a thick black death energy entwined with them. The death energy was still struggling unceasingly. It was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws to counterattack. It was doing everything it could to resist. At this moment, the life energy and the medicinal efficacy met in the dantian. Chu Yang's enormous spiritual power fiercely poured in. Wu Qianqian's originally expressionless face suddenly flushed. Then she opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood that should have been bright red was now reddish-black. It was mixed with blackish-purple blood clots. Chu Yang sensitively felt that Wu Qianqian was close to his chest. He could hear a soft heartbeat. This was the moment. Chu Yang waved his hand and put the jade-like half of the resurrection grass that he had prepared earlier into Wu Qianqian's mouth. Then, Chu Yang used his own mouth to tightly press against Wu Qianqian's sandalwood mouth. A pure spiritual power completely blocked the path of the medicinal efficacy of the resurrection grass. Then, it rushed down along her meridians. At the same time, the other half of the grass turned into the purest spiritual power in Chu Yang's palm. Then, Chu Yang patted Wu Qianqian's dantian and locked it there. Not a single drop of it leaked out. Wu Qianqian's snow-white and tender body suddenly showed a strange situation. Starting from her neck, the original snow-white color turned into a sad pink color. Moreover, the area was rapidly expanding. A bright pink color quickly occupied the original snow-white territory and kept spreading downwards. Starting from Wu Qianqian's dantian, her entire lower body and her 2 legs also turned pink the moment the other half of the spiritual power entered her body. Then, it spread upwards in the opposite direction. One on the top and one on the bottom, they moved side by side and gradually converged. Looking at the speed of the 2 sides, it was completely foreseeable that these 2 forces of pink would converge at Wu Qianqian's heart. As long as they successfully converged, it would be the time of great success. Chu Yang was completely focused. He did not dare to slack off in the slightest. The spiritual power in his life force dantian poured out in torrents as if it did not care about its own life. Inside the death energy dantian, other than absorbing the death energy from Wu Qianqian's body bit by bit, it continued to transform. It transformed the death energy in its body into life force energy and injected it back into the life force dantian. It tried its best to prolong the duration of the output from the life force dantian. The 2 patches of pink were slowly and methodically advancing. And the heartbeat in Wu Qianqian's chest gradually changed from 1 beat after a long time to a slow and continuous beat. Although the number of beats was still much less than that of a normal person, the characteristics of life had already begun to recover in her body. Now, it was the most crucial moment. Success or failure depended on this one move. The death energy in Wu Qianqian's meridians, under the effect of the strong medicinal power and the life spiritual power, had quickly condensed to one place. It was on the verge of being expelled. As long as this death energy was expelled, Wu Qianqian's resurrection would not be hindered. However, at this moment, Chu Yang's mind suddenly recalled a few sentences. Mo Qing Wu of the clouds. The path of 3 lives can mend the sky. Yin and Yang need to cherish the beauty. Chu Yang, who was completely focused and did not dare to be careless, could not help but be in a trance at this moment. Chu Yang had already considered and analyzed these few sentences for a long time. In fact, this was also one of the reasons why he had to bring Tai But Ian up regardless of the consequences. Mo Qing Wu of the clouds. This sentence had already confirmed one meaning. Mo Qing Wu had already come to the clouds. But what was the other meaning? Mo Qing Wu? Mo Qing Wu? Was this advising him to be cautious? Did it mean not to be young and frivolous? Or was it warning Mo Qing Wu not to do anything rashly? Yin and Yang need to cherish the beauty. This sentence had already confirmed that Wu Qianqian had almost been separated by Yin and Yang because of Chu Yang. Yes, it was not just a little, it was already separated by Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang need to cherish the beauty. This prophecy, or disaster, could be said to have already passed, but what did the sentence, "The path of 3 lives can mend the sky," mean? The reason why Chu Yang brought Tai Budian with him was to avoid this prophecy. If one of them was in the heavenly imperial court and the other was in the heavenly realm, it would be too late for Chu Yang to do anything about it. At least for now, Chu Yang had no way of dealing with it. If I want to mend the sky, why should I go to the path of 3 lives? Chu Yang definitely did not want to go through the pain of the path of 3 lives. He would definitely not let Tai Budian go through it. That was really too painful. With Mo Qing Wu's past and present life, and Wu Qianqian's separation of Yin and Yang, this was already enough. I really don't need any reincarnation of the path of 3 lives. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. Could it be that something is going to happen to Tai Budian after all? Some kind of unforeseen event? Chu Yang frowned. If that's the case, I still have to be more vigilant during this period of time. My current strength is still not enough. If we reach the heavenly realm, maybe we won't have to worry about anything anymore. But now, Chu Yang was thinking in his heart. Coincidentally, at this moment, Wu Qianqian, who was hugging her chest, suddenly shook violently. Then, an unusually strong aura of death suddenly emanated from her body. At the same time, some greenish-purple fog slowly seeped out from her skin. Chu Yang concentrated, not daring to be careless, and used all his strength to expel this aura of death. In order to avoid any possibility of the aura of death flowing back, he simply used the multiplication heaven's divine technique to absorb all the aura of death into his dantian. After circulating the technique, he converted all the aura of death into vitality and re-injected it into Wu Qianqian's body. This originally came from Wu Qianqian's body, and could be said to be the elements of Wu Qianqian's body. Although the aura of death formed by these elements would only bring about negative effects, it still came from Wu Qianqian. At this moment, after being converted by Chu Yang's multiplication heaven's divine technique, although the elements were different, the essence was not changed. Therefore, it was easy for it to merge with Wu Qianqian's body without any obstruction. Wu Qianqian's motionless body slowly trembled. The long eyelashes of her tightly closed eyes suddenly trembled, as if she was trying to open them with all her might. But she had some misgivings, or maybe it was because she didn't have the strength. Suddenly, Wu Qianqian let out a moan. Although this moan was weak, it was like the sound of nature to Chu Yang. The sword spirit, who had been standing outside worriedly, also heard this little movement. He finally let out a long sigh. "My mother, it's finally done. Since this matter is over, I have to go back quickly. There's still a lot of aura of death waiting there." The sword spirit transmitted a thought to Chu Yang. Then he immediately calculated and said anxiously, "Oh no, a whole day has passed. I don't know what's going on in the infinite boundless mountain now. Not good." Chapter 2077. Chu Yang didn't answer the sword spirit's question. That's because there was a huge surprise waiting for him. Everything else wasn't important. Wu Qianqian finally opened her eyes. She opened her eyes and saw Chu Yang's eyes. They were filled with an anxious expression. Her eyes were like those of a newborn. Chu Yang was instantly immersed in this pair of eyes in pleasant surprise. Wu Qianqian's eyes were wide open. It was as if she was in a dream. She looked at Chu Yang in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with love and disbelief. Her long eyelashes fluttered wildly. "Dreaming," Wu Qianqian said in a heavy voice. Chu Yang finally felt relieved. Wu Qianqian's voice was full of energy. She wasn't weaker than an ordinary person. She hadn't fully recovered. But she was much better. Of course, how can this be a dream? Chu Yang gazed at her. Their eyes were almost stuck together. They could clearly feel the heat of each other's breath as they spoke. Wu Qianqian looked at Chu Yang in a daze. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth curled up. It seemed as if she wanted to laugh. But she didn't succeed in the end. Instead, she opened her small mouth to cry. Then, tears silently filled her eyes and trickled down like broken pearls. Then, she started to sob silently. She was crying. But she still couldn't bear to close her eyes. She stubbornly stared at Chu Yang. She was afraid that the face she loved would disappear if she closed her eyes and opened them again. Chu Yang knew her feelings. So, he hugged her tightly. He also didn't want to let go. He was so moved. His heart was full of warmth and gratitude. Wu Qianqian had just woken up. She didn't notice that she wasn't wearing any clothes. She knew that Chu Yang had also completely ignored it. The two were facing each other in the most private way. Moreover, Chu Yang remembered the sword spirit's instructions. Wu Qianqian's body was suspended in the air. Her feet were off the ground. Her entire weight was hanging on Chu Yang's body. The two looked at each other. They were extremely happy. After a long while, Wu Qianqian's emotions calmed down a little. She looked at Chu Yang affectionately and asked, "Is this really true?" Her voice was still full of uncertainty. Being with her beloved in her long slumber was already the greatest consolation. However, she had lost too much, so Wu Qianqian did not dare to believe that everything in front of her was real. "Really? It's true." Chu Yang looked at her and nodded with certainty. Wu Qianqian suddenly covered her mouth with her hand and started crying. That pair of beautiful eyes was finally willing to close. However, due to the bitterness of the pleasant surprise, as well as the sourness of her eyes from not daring to close them for too long, more and more tears gushed out. In an instant, tears gushed out like a spring. "Thank God. Thank the earth." Wu Qianqian murmured and hugged Chu Yang tightly. She leaned her head against Chu Yang's chest and said softly, "Chu Yang, I once made up my mind." "What is it?" "When I was unconscious, I thought that if I could wake up one day, I would say something to you. Something that I wanted to say to you for a long time but did not have the courage to say." Wu Qianqian raised her head and looked at Chu Yang. She didn't even blink. She said seriously, "Chu Yang, Qianqian likes you." Chu Yang suddenly closed his eyes. He only felt that the softest part of his heart had been ruthlessly hit. It was full of sour and tender feelings. Scenes of the past quickly flashed through his mind. They were right in front of his eyes. It turned out that his beloved had already left an indelible mark in his heart. It was just that he had completely ignored it in the past. Heavenly Armament Pavilion, that black robe, that ferocious mask, and that black hair behind the mask, that unparalleled beauty. When she left, she gave him a big package. Inside it were black robes that Wu Qianqian had sewn together. He did not know how many there were. At the bottom of each black robe, there was a slight protrusion that did not attract attention. That was the heart of a young girl. There, on each black robe, there were a few words embroidered with hair. "Chu Yang, Qianqian likes you." The devastating beauty of the ninja sect turned into a black robe and a black robe. A cold heart and jade bones made a mask for the monarch. The long hair behind the gold mask fluttered in the wind, and the eyes full of tenderness. Chu Yang seemed to see that day again. He slapped open the bottom of the black robe. There, the words made of hair quietly appeared on the stone floor. "Chu Yang, Qianqian likes you." Scenes of the past flashed through his eyes. In an instant, Chu Yang really seemed to have gone through 3 lifetimes. Chu Yang suddenly opened his eyes. What he saw was Wu Qianqian's fervent eyes, with some uneasiness, fear, shyness, and a trace of sadness in the depths of her eyes. As if she had foreseen Chu Yang's rejection, Wu Qianqian's fervent eyes slowly dimmed. The light in her eyes slowly retracted. That kind of inferiority and self-pity? "Senior Wu. I also like you." Chu Yang couldn't help but hug her tightly. "I also like you, Senior Wu, Qianqian." Wu Qianqian's eyes widened in surprise. The sadness in the depths of her eyes suddenly turned into a completely overwhelmed surprise. She originally didn't have any hope. It was just that the great joy and sorrow after life and death made her state of mind a little unbalanced. She was afraid that she would lose him forever. But when she heard Chu Yang's reply, it was as if a bolt of lightning suddenly lit up her cloudy sky. It completely lit up her hazy sky. "It turns out that it's not that I don't want it. It's not that I don't care." She trembled as she looked at Chu Yang. Suddenly, tears streamed down her face. She cried tears of joy and hugged him tightly. "Chu Yang, thank you for liking me. Thank you for liking me. I'm so happy. I want to cry." Chu Yang's heart ached. He was agitated. This poor girl. Her life's wish was actually so humble. Her love was so real, so pure, so deep, but she was still so nervous. She had already given up all her love, and she had no regrets. She actually had to wholeheartedly thank her lover for saying that she liked him. Why did she have to do this? What kind of deep love was this? How can I, Chu Yang, be able to make her fall in love with me so wholeheartedly? Immediately, he was overjoyed. Just now, when she hugged him, her strength was surprisingly great. Could it be that her body had already completely recovered? Even his cultivation had been restored? Actually, Chu Yang had overlooked a very important point. When Wu Qianqian was in a life-or-death situation, her cultivation was not considered too high. Not to mention the current Chu Yang, even the Chu Yang who had not ascended the heavenly imperial palace, the difference between the two was extremely huge. Even with Chu Yang's current cultivation, he was still shocked by Wu Qianqian's strength. One could imagine how great Wu Qianqian's strength was now. Chu Yang gently patted Wu Qianqian's smooth back and comforted her in a soft voice. "Well, it's all over now. We're all fine now. Yes, yes." Wu Qianqian hid her beautiful face in his arms and nodded vigorously. Suddenly, she cried out in surprise, "Why is my body so—" Then she screamed again, I'm not wearing any clothes. Suddenly, she could not restrain her shyness. Why aren't you? Chu Yang also woke up at this time. He was somewhat embarrassed, and even had a strange feeling in his heart. In an instant he actually had a reaction. A certain part of him was at daggers drawn, and was firmly pressed against Wu Qianqian's flat lower abdomen. It was as if he was about to attack a city, and fight bravely. This is actually what happened. Chu Yang's mouth and tongue were dry as he explained the whole process. You'd better put me down first. How would this look? Wu Qianqian was so embarrassed that her whole body was burning. It turned out that someone was still hugging her tightly. The two naked bodies were still tightly pressed against each other as before. It's all right. Well, you've just been treated. How would you have the strength to walk? All right, you haven't taken a bath yet. Chu Yang said shamelessly, let's go, I'll carry you to take a bath. Oh, I can walk by myself. Really, I can take a bath by myself. I have the strength. Wu Qianqian shyly struggled with all her strength. If it was someone else, she would have been broken free. How would this look like someone who did not have the strength to walk? Don't move. I'm telling you, even if you have the strength, it's not enough. You can't move rashly now. What if your injuries relapse? I have the final say in this matter. Chu Yang's face was stern. He said in a very domineering manner, don't move. I'll take a bath for you. I've already bathed you 800 times before. What's wrong with that? The righteousness did not last for a moment. His heart was dirty and vulgar. Wu Qianqian struggled but could not break free. She did not know why, but her whole body was burning. She felt the strong body of the man in front of her tightly pressed against her. His muscles moved rhythmically. She could not help but feel weak all over. Chu Yang carried Wu Qianqian and walked to the large jade vat that had been prepared earlier. Inside the vat, there was already warm spring water. You put me down. I'll take a bath by myself. Wu Qianqian's voice was like a mosquito. She was so shy that she closed her eyes and did not look again. It's all right. I'm already used to it. Did you think I was joking? I've already bathed you 800 times. Chu Yang laughed mischievously. Used to it? 800 times? Wu Qianqian did not understand. Well, during this period of time, you can't move. I'll come every 2 days to take a bath for you. Then I'll give you a massage. Then I'll change your clothes. Chu Yang said softly, I've already bathed your body many times. Even if it's not 800 times, it's at least 800 times. You've bathed many times? 800 times? 800 times? Wu Qianqian was so shy that she almost fainted. According to what he said, he had seen everything and even touched it. Chapter 2078. The warm spring water wrapped around their bodies. Wu Qianqian closed her eyes tightly, not daring to look at the person in front of her. Since sigh. The next moment, she felt Chu Yang's warm hands roaming around her body, gently scrubbing her from head to toe, her neck, her shoulders, her soft breasts, her lower abdomen, her perky buttocks, her thighs. There was nothing that he did not touch. Chu Yang did not miss a single spot. His movements were gentle and skillful. Wu Qianqian only felt her heart beating wildly. For a moment she felt a little dizzy. After a long while, she suddenly felt a surge of tenderness. Looking at Chu Yang's skillful movements, it was obvious that he had done it more than once, or even more than a dozen times. Could it be that he had done it more than 100 times? She thought about how she had been unconscious like a corpse, and how Chu Yang had taken care of her for 2 whole years. Chu Yang had been so meticulous and considerate. In this world, who else could be like Chu Yang, who had taken care of a living corpse for 2 whole years without the slightest bit of disdain? Wu Qianqian's heart was filled with an indescribable tenderness. She was also touched. Although she was still embarrassed, her heart had calmed down a lot. At this moment, she felt Chu Yang's hands suddenly stop. He had finished washing. Then, his hands slid to her chest, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally. Then, he gently held her breasts. This action was very different from the previous bathing. The feeling was completely different. Chu Yang's hands were not only holding her breasts, but they were also moving gently. Although Wu Qianqian closed her eyes, she could imagine that Chu Yang had played with her breasts until they were out of shape. A pair of warm lips pressed against her ear. Wu Qianqian's body suddenly trembled. She only felt her earlobe being held by those warm lips. In an instant, her whole body convulsed and trembled. She only heard Chu Yang softly say, "Senior Sister Wu, be my woman, okay?" Wu Qianqian suddenly hid her head in Chu Yang's bosom. She was trembling like a frightened quail. She could feel a strange feeling rising in her body. It was strange, but there was also a faint expectation. With a splash, Chu Yang stepped out of the bathtub with Wu Qianqian in his arms. His hands held Senior Martial Sister Wu's soft and supple buttocks. His chin gently lifted Wu Qianqian's small head and sucked on Wu Qianqian's red lips. Although Wu Qianqian loved a certain someone very much, she had never experienced such a fiery scene. She was just about to scream when she felt a soft tongue entering her mouth. In that instant, my soul flew out of my body and I no longer knew what day it was. When she woke up again, she didn't know when Chu Yang had placed her on the bed. Then, she felt Chu Yang leaning on her body and whispering in her ear, "Qianqian." Wu Qianqian closed her eyes and blushed. Then, she nodded her head imperceptibly. At this moment, Tai Budian was calculating the strength of the Chu clan in her room so that she could make further plans. Since the 3 Saber Saints joined the Chu clan, the strength of the Chu clan had increased significantly. In addition, there was Duan Cankong who was about to recover his strength. Something was fishy. Chu Yang. If such strength was placed in Purple Cloud City 2 months ago, it would have been enough to dominate. But now, it was far from enough to protect itself. The Miao clan can be a potential ally, but a single Miao clan is still not enough. Chu Yang is trying his best to find a way out for these children. Pushing out a sect is equivalent to gaining the friendship of this sect. This is also a potential network. It can't be underestimated. It needs to be managed carefully. But what's going on with this young leader? This time, I can clearly feel the undercurrent surging. It's very dangerous. Tai Budian frowned. Although this situation was almost unsolvable, Tai Budian and Chu Yang were the same. They had walked out from unsolvable situations, so they didn't care much. At least, compared to the time when they fought against Diwu Qingru in the lower 3 heavens, the current situation was much more confident. Well, now the dreamlike secular pavilion and the Lingxiao faction can be said to have no life and death threats. If we can push out another sect, preferably from another world, we can form a mutual restraint. Then it will be more foolproof. It's just that this matter still needs to wait for the right time. Just as she was thinking, she suddenly heard a knock on the door. Without raising her head, she said, "Come in." The door opened and Chu Yang walked in with a smile on his face. He looked very relaxed. "What's wrong? What are you so happy about?" Tai Budian frowned. "Well, I finally did something big today. Your Majesty, you should thank me. I let you and your husband reunite today." Chu Yang winked. "Husband and wife reunite? What do you mean?" Even though Tai Budian was very intelligent, she was still confused by Chu Yang's sudden words. "Well, you still don't understand? Husband and wife reunite means that I have brought you your empress. And she's still alive." Chu Yang laughed. "Qianqian." Tai Budian stood up abruptly. "Where is she? Quickly take me to see her." Wu Qianqian blushed. She lowered her head and walked in slowly. "Qianqian." Tai Budian cheered. She went around Chu Yang and pounced over at lightning speed. She hugged Wu Qianqian. "The heavens have taken pity on you. You've finally woken up, my poor sister." Wu Qianqian was also very excited. Good friends, comrades in arms, and roommates from back then were finally reunited again. She also felt a little embarrassed. It seemed that they would have to serve the same husband from now on and be different roommates. The 2 women held hands and talked excitedly. The feelings of reunion after a long separation were overflowing in their words. Chu Yang quietly pushed the door open and walked out. He would leave this space and time completely to these 2 women. Chu Yang was not very suitable to listen to women's topics. Walking out of the door and into the courtyard, he saw Duan Tsongkong instructing people to do work. There was also a team of martial artists practicing at the side. These are the people brought over by the giant spirit saber. They've all been assigned to our Chu clan's courtyard. Duan Tsongkong smiled and explained, Thunder Wild Saber's people are still on the way. They're relatively far away and will only arrive in about 2 days. Chu Yang nodded and suddenly smiled mysteriously. Elder Duan, let me tell you something good. Tonight, let's try to circulate our martial arts. Except for the resurrection grass, all the materials are ready, right? One could understand the meaning of the song. Duan Tsongkong's eyes suddenly widened. He was so excited that he almost could not speak. Lord, could it be that the resurrection grass? Chu Yang smiled and nodded. I told you it's something good. Of course, it's in my hands. Duan Tsongkong's body trembled violently. He was actually stunned. The greatest wish of his life was about to be fulfilled. From now on, he could completely get rid of the shackles of his old injuries and laugh proudly in the world again. Chu Yang quietly left. Duan Tsongkong needed to adjust his state of mind. Otherwise, if he were to draw out the saber energy of the infinite invincible saber in such an agitated state, there was a great chance that Duan Tsongkong's body would collapse and be completely destroyed. Brother Hu. Chu Yang thought for a while and decided to take precautions to eliminate all the hidden dangers at the moment. In the past few days, there had been a faint shadow shrouding his heart. This was an ominous sign. Chu Yang had never doubted this feeling of his. In fact, it was this vigilance that allowed him to avoid many potential dangers. Since he had such a premonition, something was definitely going to happen. And this thing was bound to be very unfavorable to him. What's the matter? Brother Hu stroked his beard. I have something to ask of you. Chu Yang said cautiously. What's the matter? Just say it. With Brother Hu around, it won't be difficult. Brother Hu took on everything. It's like this. Chu Yang gestured as he spoke. No problem. But I have a condition. Brother Hu raised his head and said proudly. What condition? Say it. Chu Yang said. He had long been prepared for Brother Hu to take advantage of the situation. I want 2 pieces of souls of the purple crystal. This isn't a lot. In exchange for my full help, it's worth it. Brother Hu was clearly lacking in confidence. Souls of the purple crystal. Chu Yang frowned, looking very hesitant. Just as Brother Hu's mood had hit rock bottom and he was about to lower the price automatically, Chu Yang suddenly asked, How many more souls of the purple crystal do you need now to recover your injuries to the maximum limit that the purple crystal's energy can recover? Brother Hu was stunned. Then he said, How many pieces? Why do I still need 15 pieces? This is the minimum amount. 15 pieces? I'll give you 20 pieces. Use as much as you want. Chu Yang's words caused Brother Hu to pass out completely. Recover your strength to the limit that you can recover as soon as possible. Something big is likely to happen in the next few days. Chu Yang's expression was very grave. His voice was also very grave. He already had a premonition that a huge storm could come at any time. Although he didn't know what it was exactly, Chu Yang believed that it was definitely not a small matter. In order to get through this inexplicable crisis, Chu Yang was already sparing no expense. This premonition of crisis gave him too much pressure and too strong. Chu Yang didn't even have any confidence that he could guarantee that nothing would go wrong. No problem. Brother Hu cheered and jumped up, his tail wagging wildly. What level can you reach after swallowing 20 pieces of souls of the purple crystal? Chu Yang asked cautiously. At least heavenly man level. This level shouldn't be a problem. Brother Hu was full of confidence. Heavenly man level. If it's enough, it's barely enough. But if the old monsters on the other side attack, then it's still not enough. Chu Yang pondered. Forget it. You'd better swallow these souls of the purple crystal first before talking about anything else. Chu Yang made up his mind fiercely. If it really didn't work, then he would just smash it with heavy pills. Smash it until you recovered even 1 more point. I'm going all out. Chapter 2079. Returning to Infinite Boundless Mountain, the Sword Spirit was shocked as soon as he arrived. He should have been greatly shocked. The scene in front of him was too shocking. Ever since the sword spirit displayed his might and sealed the death chi, infinite boundless mountain had been packed with people these days. But now, the entire mountain was empty, and the area below was covered with countless corpses. Blood flowed like a river, and the smell of blood spread 500 miles away with the wind. The sword spirit couldn't help but sigh. These people were really murderous. And there were so many people. So many had died, but there were still so many people fighting. What were they trying to do? How could they pass? In the crowd, the black-clothed Wang Dao walked slowly, expressionless, his eyes like a vulture's. Some people who saw him avoided him, afraid that they would be targeted by this killing god. This guy was really too terrifying. Once he attacked, there would be no return without blood. Once he attacked, there would be no exceptions. In just a few days' effort, Wang Dao had already been crowned with an elegant title that even he himself didn't know, Destiny's Blade. Destiny couldn't be defied. Once he attacked, it was destiny that wanted you dead. Death in one slash. Although he had only made his debut for a short time, he had already established a fierce reputation. Under the heaven grade, there was no match for him. At this time, there were still several groups of people fighting with their lives on the mountainside. It was unknown what they were fighting for. Dragging his saber, Wang Dao walked forward coldly, watching the battle with cold eyes. Unexpectedly, when the dozen or so people saw Wang Dao coming over, they immediately screamed and ran away in panic. They didn't even want to fight. Saber of Destiny is here. Everyone scattered like birds and beasts. Everyone panicked and didn't know where to go, hating their parents for not giving birth to them with 2 more legs. Wang Dao's eyes flickered slightly. Once upon a time, he was just an ordinary farmer's boy, and anyone could bully him. But now, there were so many people who he could only look up to in awe, running away in panic after seeing him. If he could restart his life, would he choose to continue being that boy, with nothing else to ask for as long as he could reunite with his family? Or would he choose his current life? Wang Dao closed his eyes, shook his head, and waved away this unrealistic question. Holding his saber, he walked away. Wherever he went, the people there would make way for him. The sword spirit was dumbfounded. How awe-inspiring. Well, who is the Blade of Destiny? Was he talking about Wang Dao? What a domineering nickname. Looking down the mountain, he saw that there was originally a very spacious area at the foot of the mountain. Demonic chi filled the sky. It was clear that the demon army from the Heaven Imperial Court had finally arrived. The allure of the ruins was indeed shocking. Even the demon race couldn't resist it. They had crossed several planes to rush over. The members of the demon race were all grotesquely shaped. Some were handsome, some were perfect, and some were extremely ugly. They all went to extremes, with donkeys' lips and horses' mouths, bulls' heads and dogs' faces. As expected, it's a group of demons dancing wildly and bewitching all living beings. The sword spirit shook his head and entered the long sword formed by the sword intent again. In the blink of an eye, the black chi that was gushing out suddenly retracted and returned to its original state of trickling out. Suddenly, a strong wind blew across the sky, blowing away all the chilly aura of death lingering on the mountaintop in just a short while. This sudden change instantly attracted everyone's attention. The chilly aura returned to its original state a few days ago. Such a huge change naturally shocked everyone. They couldn't help but make guesses. Why did it suddenly return to normal? What's going on? Facing this strange change, all the major sects finally reacted. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A few figures came to the mountaintop like shooting stars. Shui Xian, Hai Bo, and all the other senior experts of the same level landed on the mountaintop at the same time. They were afraid that they would miss out if they were late. Their expressions were solemn. They didn't go near the long sword that was flickering with cold light. They only observed the surroundings, paying attention to any clues. Strange. Since it can suppress it to this extent, why didn't it suppress the aura of death for an entire day? Why did it let the aura of death spread? Could it be that there's a limit to this sword's power, and after suppressing it to a certain extent, it has to be suspended for a certain period of time? There was a similar suspension in the past, just that it didn't last this long. Why do I always feel like I'm being spied on every time I come here? There's obviously no one around, but this feeling is abnormally strong. One of them frowned. The sword spirit followed his advice and immediately stopped looking around. His body completely merged with the long sword. I also have the same feeling. I thought I was too sensitive, but it turns out that everyone has the same feeling. Shui Xian frowned and looked around. Suddenly she saw Wu Zhangxiu. He was staring at her without any concealment. His eyes were full of love. She couldn't help but sigh heavily. This guy is really annoying. I can't really kill him. It's killing me. Elder Mu of the Heavenly Sword Alliance frowned and muttered, could this situation be a sign that the divine soul of the calamity below has awakened? It's fighting against this sword? And today, the aura of death has surged violently. Perhaps it was this sword that was at a disadvantage. Or maybe the two are equal. That's why the chilly aura of death has surged? The divine soul of the calamity had a similar movement before, but it was completely suppressed. At most, it only surged violently for a moment. Another person came to a realization. Now that everything is calm, it should be that the divine soul of the calamity has been suppressed again? That should be the case. In that case, this sword can actually suppress a mature and awakened divine soul of the calamity? The power of this sword is really shocking. The moment this sentence was said, the eyes of the 30-over-old guys lit up. They stared at the sword like searchlights. The sword spirit felt uncomfortable being stared at by so many eyes. Not only the sword spirit, anyone would feel uncomfortable being surrounded by so many expectant, longing, and covetous eyes. Shui Xian snorted and said in a strange tone, "What? Do you all want this sword?" "Sure. But I don't know if you have the ability to pick it up." The moment this question was asked, all of them became discouraged. Pick it up? How many people have died because of getting close to this sword? There's no lack of experts. We've all seen it with our own eyes. Why would we take the risk? Shui Xian snorted and said, all of you can't even pick it up, and you're still dreaming? Even if you can pick up that sword, can you afford to offend the owner of this sword? Of course, if any of you have the ability to pick up that sword, you should be able to deal with the owner of the sword. The problem is, which one of you can? All of the old men's faces turned red. All of you are idiots who don't know your own limits. Shui Xian didn't let them off and mocked them to her heart's content. Speaking of which, Shui Xian was a very gentle woman. However, the fact that the various realms concealed the news of the battle in advance caused the Eastern Royal Heavens to suffer a huge loss. Even though Shui Xian was a clay figurine, she still had some temper. Thus, every word she said was filled with sarcasm. Shui Xian's words were undoubtedly sharp and unkind, but they exposed the truth. An old man said angrily, "Shui Xian, what do you mean by that? It's fine if everyone knows about some things. Even if you say it out loud, we won't bicker with you on account that you're a woman. But it's fine if you say it out loud, but you're still not done? Do you really think that we're afraid of you?" Shui Xian was worried that she didn't have an excuse to flare up. When she heard that, she instantly flew into a rage. What? So what if I'm a woman? Women still know how to take responsibility for their actions. They don't hide and play dirty tricks. So what if I say a few more words? What I said wasn't true, so I'm not done. What can you do about it? I can see that you're afraid of me. If you're not convinced, come and spar with me. Do you dare? Shui Xian wanted to cause trouble to vent her anger, so her words were naturally as unpleasant as they could be. That old man was so angry that his face turned red. Look, what is this? Are you scolding me like a shrew? Although he said that, this old man really didn't dare to go against Shui Xian. His strength was slightly inferior to Wu Zhangxiu's, so how could he dare to spar with Shui Xian? That wasn't a spar, it was simply asking for a beating. After all, not everyone was like Wu Zhangxiu, who enjoyed being beaten up. Shui Xian stepped forward. So what if I say that you're greedy? So what if I say that you're delusional? So what if I say that you're not capable? So what if I say that you can't afford to offend others? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? That old man was forced to step back. Suddenly he was furious. Shui Xian, do you really think that you've got me? I really don't care about you. Shui Xian raised her eyebrows and pulled out her long sword. She looked angry. A bunch of people who only know how to play tricks. Why are you pulling out your sword? Let me teach you how to be a person. At least, I'll let you be more humane. Clang! That old man couldn't take it anymore. He shook his wrist and pulled out his long sword. The old man was also a high-ranking person of a sect. He couldn't afford to lose face like this. He would rather be beaten to death than be bullied to death. Both sides were in a heated atmosphere. They were on the verge of a fight. Or it should be said that the arrow was on the bow and had to be released. At this moment, Wu Zhangxiu rushed out and inserted himself between the two. He waved his hand and said, "Everyone, calm down. Calm down. Give me some face," that old man said angrily. "Wu Zhangxiu, this has nothing to do with you. What are you doing?" Wu Zhangxiu's face was full of smiles. He said, "I shouldn't interfere in the matter between Shui Xian and you. Besides, I'm shy and don't know how to talk." That old man's face relaxed a little. It was pure nonsense to say that Wu Zhangxiu was shy. However, he came out to mediate at this moment, which was what the old man wanted. As long as he could avoid a direct PK with Shui Xian, it was fine to let Wu Zhangxiu talk. Chapter 2080. What a vicious slap. It came so suddenly that it caught everyone off guard, and it was even more ferocious. The old man's entire body spun like a top, and he flew out horizontally just like that. Speaking of which, these two people's cultivations were roughly on par. Although the old man was slightly weaker, if they really fought, even if Wu Zhangxiu could win, it would take at least a few hundred rounds. It was impossible to take him down in a short time. But this time, the distance between the two was too close, and the old man was caught off guard. Furthermore, Wu Zhangxiu's tone, voice, and expression were too confusing, and the old man suffered a huge loss. Seeing the old man's body fly out, everyone's mouths were wide open, and they turned to look at Wu Zhangxiu in a daze. This guy was really cunning. It seemed that he had to reevaluate this fellow. Seeing him approach with a simple and honest face, everyone thought that he was going to be a peacemaker, trying to smooth things over. Who would have thought that he would actually come up with such an explosive move? It was simply too shocking. It was also too shocking. Thinking back to that simple and honest slap, everyone was sweating profusely. Motherfucker, such a confusing attack. I believe that if it were me, I wouldn't be able to dodge it either. Wu Zhangxiu. This old man and you cannot exist under the same sky. The old man flew back as soon as he landed, his long hair standing straight in anger. He had suffered such a huge loss today, and he really couldn't die in peace. If he didn't get it back, how would he have the face to stand in front of others? In the midst of shame, and anger, his sword flashed, and he actually went all out. Hey, I'm talking about that. Don't use your mouth and not your hands. Wu Zhangxiu shouted. Hurry up and stop, I'll have a good discussion with you, and let everyone be the judge. If I'm really wrong, the old man glared at him. What are you going to do if you're wrong? Don't tell me that Shui Xian was right when she scolded me just now. Wu Zhangxiu said angrily, what do you know? Come, everyone come and judge. He actually seemed to be very angry, and he turned to look at everyone. Is he wrong or am I wrong? I'll hit him, the old man angrily rushed forward. If you want to judge, then judge. I don't believe that there isn't. Suddenly, at this time, Wu Zhangxiu suddenly kicked the old man's dantian fiercely. With a th sound, he kicked the old man away and shouted, I hit him. Can't I hit him? So what if I hit him? It was another kick that caught him off guard. At this moment, everyone's eyebrows twitched. This was too shameless. Too despicable. Too despicable. Too despicable. This time, Wu Zhangxiu didn't wait for his opponent to get up and directly pounced on him. He caught up with the old man in the air, whose body was bent like a prawn after being kicked. Wu Zhangxiu fiercely cursed as he rained punches and kicks on him. So I hit you? So what if I hit you? Come and hit me. Come and hit me. Come and fucking hit me. Fuck. How dare you draw your sword against me? I told you to draw your sword. I told you to draw your sword. You're despicable. You're despicable. You're fucking despicable. Your whole family is despicable. I'm scared of you when you draw your sword. I'm scared of you. I'm scared of you. I'm scared to death of you. You dare to hit me. You fucking dare to hit me back. Hit me back, hit me back, hit me back. Why aren't you hitting me back? I'm fucking asking you to hit me back. Why aren't you hitting me back? Bang bang bang, pew pew pew. When everyone rushed forward and forcefully pulled the two apart, the poor old man had already fainted from the beating. His head and face were full of blood and dirt. Half of the reason why he fainted was because he was angry, and the other half was because he was sullen. If it was just a beating, he definitely wouldn't have fainted. Wu Zhangxiu's attacks were very measured, and he definitely wouldn't kill anyone. But this was really too sullen. Wu Zhangxiu stood up proudly and put his face in front of Xue Xian. Xian, you see, I told you that this old thing is no match for me. How can that old thing keep up with me? He's strong and strong, shall we? Xue Xian's face was full of black lines, and she said in a low and furious voice, "Scram. Who told you to meddle in other people's business?" Wu Zhangxiu nodded and bowed. If you tell me to scram, I'll scram immediately, and I'll scram nonstop. Do you want to see how I'll roll? Roll vertically, roll horizontally, or roll in a ball. Before he finished speaking, a scream instantly rang out. Wu Zhangxiu had already been kicked in the stomach by Xue Xian, and he was like a rubber ball, and he really rolled nonstop down the steep mountain peak. In the blink of an eye, he had already scrammed and disappeared without a trace. All the old men turned around, and a few of them were already planning to settle the score with Wu Zhangxiu. But they realized that he had already disappeared. Just as they were about to fly into a rage, they met Xue Xian's cold eyes, and Hai Bo, who was at the side, was glaring at them covetously with his sword hilt in his hand. They gritted their teeth and said, "Xian, this method is too despicable." Xue Xian said indifferently, "Is it up to me whether it's despicable or not? Let's not talk about whether Wu Zhangxiu is related to me or not. Whether he was ordered by me or not, even if he was ordered by me, do you have any objections? Who has any objections? Step forward." The few old men were so angry that their mouths and eyes were twisted, but no one dared to step forward. After all, although that old man belonged to a super sect, he was from a lower-tier super sect. How could they offend dreamlike verandas Xue Xian in the eastern royal heavens for such a person? Soon after, a large group of people came up to mediate. They were all 10,000-year-old old demons, and they all knew that it was absolutely stupid to fight now. The group of people argued and pulled each other. Then they walked down in a single file. That unconscious old man had already woken up. With a bruised face, he flew out to settle the score with Wu Zhangxiu. Hai Bo walked in front of Xue Xian and said softly, "Xian, actually, that old Wu is really sincere to you. He took on such a big trouble for you without even saying a word. I think you should consider taking him. If you miss out on him, you'll..." Before he could finish, he met Xue Xian's murderous gaze. He raised his hand bitterly and said, "All right, just take it that I didn't say anything." Xue Xian snorted angrily with a murderous aura. She extended her body and flew away. Tai Budian and Wu Qianqian, the husband and wife, reunited after a long separation, seemed to have endless room talk. The two chatted and laughed at the side of the room. They actually chatted for more than 4 hours and still had not finished. Tai Budian also told Wu Qianqian about how Chu Yang and the rest fought against the big clans, how they fought against the law enforcement officers, how they destroyed the Dharma Supreme, how they resolved the biggest crisis of the heavenly layer, how they rushed up to the heavenly layer, and so on. Wu Qianqian listened with great interest. She interjected from time to time, asking Tai Budian to explain in more detail. At the end of the story, Wu Qianqian asked, that, both of you have come up, where's Yang? When it came to the people closest to Yang, other than Tai Budian, it would be Wu Qianqian. Even Chu Yang and Ning Tianya had to be ranked behind. Tai Butian's face turned red. She said hatefully, "Don't mention that little heartless fellow. The two of them colluded to usurp the throne." Usurp the throne? What do you mean? Wu Qianqian's beautiful eyes widened. She was stunned for a moment. Then, as if she had already understood, she burst into laughter. Tai Budian also found it funny. Then, she explained, the two of them dragged me up to the upper three heavens. Then, when I returned, I discovered that the throne had already changed hands. I had already become the late empress. That's roughly what happened. Wu Qianqian found it even more funny. She laughed so hard that she could not catch her breath. Tai Budian snorted and said in a low voice, "Are you laughing at me? I'd like to ask my empress, what exactly did you do when you came in with such a lustful look on your face? Tell me the truth. Did you put a colored hat on me?" Wu Qianqian's face and ears were red. She did not speak for a long time. Even her neck was red. Tai Budian was not going to let it go. "Tell me quickly. Otherwise, I'll punish you severely." Wu Qianqian steeled her heart and decided to turn the tables. "What else could I have done? I did those things that he did to you." This time, Tai Butian's face also turned red. She said angrily, "You little hussy, what do you know? Don't spout nonsense. You're slandering me." Wu Qianqian snorted. She leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Your Majesty, is my junior brother serving you well?" Tai Butian's face instantly turned red. In her embarrassment, she pounced on Wu Qianqian and tickled her. Wu Qianqian turned her body to avoid him, but she was still scratched. So, she repeatedly begged for mercy, "Your Majesty, please spare my life. I won't dare to do it again. I won't dare to do it again. I won't say it again. By the way, what do you do when you're together?" Another round of playful noises. Then, the two women leaned their heads together and whispered. Their faces were red and their eyes were watery. They were so embarrassed that they could not restrain themselves. Chu Yang stood outside the door. His heart was burning as he listened. Somewhere, he was ready for battle and ready for a showdown. Then, he could not hold it in anymore. He pushed the door open and barged in. The two women screamed in fear and turned their heads in a panic. When they saw Chu Yang, they didn't know what to think, and even their necks turned red. "What are the two of you talking about so happily? Tell me too. Let me be happy too." Chu Yang walked to the side of the bed calmly and sat down between the two. He reached out and the two women fell into his arms. "Nothing." Tai Budian blushed. "It's really nothing." Wu Qianqian emphasized with a red face. "That's not right." Chu Yang blinked and said, "I heard everything just now." "You heard everything?" The two women screamed at the same time. "What did you hear?" Chapter 2081. At this point, the two girls, who were already extremely embarrassed, pressed down on the bed and covered their mouths. "Say it again, say it again." "Ooh." Chu Yang's mouth was gagged and he couldn't speak. He suddenly stuck out his tongue and licked Tai Butian's hand that was covering his mouth. Tai Budian shuddered and the strength in her hand disappeared instantly. Chu Yang used a trick and broke free. Then, the two big hands entered the Empress's clothes without any warning. They grabbed a ball of soft flesh and rubbed it gently. Then, Chu Yang teased, "Your Majesty, it seems to have gotten a lot bigger here." Tai Budian was so embarrassed that her whole body went soft. She said, "Let go. Qianqian is still here." Wu Qianqian blushed and stood up hurriedly. She said, "You guys go ahead. I still have something to do." She was about to escape. However, Chu Yang reached out and grabbed her. She stumbled and fell onto the bed. Chu Yang hugged Tai Budian with one hand. Then, he flipped over and pressed Wu Qianqian under his body. He covered Wu Qianqian's little mouth with his big mouth. His other hand reached into Wu Qianqian's lapel with great familiarity. With a flick and a swipe, Wu Qianqian's lapel was already half open, revealing her snow-white shoulders and half of her soft breasts. The two girls were so embarrassed that they struggled vigorously at the same time. Minister Chu is worthy of being called Minister Chu. How can he let a cooked duck fly away at such a critical juncture? His two large hands moved up and down, showing off his superb hand skills. "Wait for me to serve your Majesty. Junior marshal brother will also serve senior marshal sister. Let's do it together." It didn't take long. The two girls were no match for him even if they joined hands. They had already turned into two puddles of fragrant mud and fell onto the bed weakly. They knew that they shouldn't do this and that it was really too embarrassing. But they really couldn't resist someone's forceful attack. Chu Yang made a series of movements in a flurry. Suddenly, two white and tender bodies appeared on the bed. He stood up and roughly took off his clothes. His eyes lit up as he pressed himself on top of the two bodies that fit perfectly. Someone moaned. This sound was like a bugle horn that signaled the start of the battle. Chu Yang immediately fell into an extremely brave and ferocious battle mode. He was invincible in besieging cities and raiding strongholds. He rode his horse and held his spear, madly fighting against the world, omitting another 3 million words. Chu Yang lay on the bed in high spirits after a full half-hour. His whole body felt very comfortable and refreshed. Tai Butian's hair was in a mess on both sides of his body. Wu Qianqian was gasping for breath. The two women felt that they couldn't even move their little fingers. It's so comfortable. Chu Yang sighed with satisfaction. This is the life of an immortal. Chu Yang had fantasized countless times before, but never had the chance to carry out the threesome. But today, he had finally achieved his wish. The satisfaction in Chu Yang's heart was unparalleled. In particular, Minister Chu was thinking in his heart, everything is difficult at the beginning. As long as there is a first time, then it is a beginning. In the future, won't I be able to taste delicious food at any time? Thinking of this, Minister Chu laughed obscenely. Hearing this perverted laughter, the two women were embarrassed and angry. They wanted to reach out and pinch him, but they didn't have any strength left. It was as if their whole bodies were cramping and they went limp. Pervert! Scoundrel! Tai Butian rested for a long while before she finally cursed out loud in shame. Thinking about how Wu Qianqian had actually seen her at her most embarrassing state, the former emperor wished that there was a hole in the ground to jump into and never come out again. It was so embarrassing. At the side, Wu Qianqian buried her face in the quilt, refusing to raise her head. Tai Butian was obviously very embarrassed, and Wu Qianqian was even more embarrassed. Today was their first time, and then they slept together under such a lewd and unruly quilt. What should they do in the future? Chu Yang was proud of himself. So what if I'm a pervert? So what if I'm a scoundrel? As long as it's comfortable. The two women scolded at the same time. They struggled to prop themselves up and bit hard on his shoulders, one on each side. Chu Yang grimaced. But how could he not let them vent after taking such great advantage of him? He just had to endure it. Just this once. Tai Butian's face was red, but her voice was resolute and decisive. There definitely won't be a next time. At the side, Wu Qianqian nodded desperately, expressing her agreement and support. There won't be a next time? Chu Yang flipped over and pressed down on Tai Butian again. Your Majesty's words are law, so I'll definitely do as you say. Since that's the case, let's play a few more times, in case we don't have another chance in the future. As he spoke, he was about to touch her. Tai Butian felt the fiery pressure and threat, and couldn't help but turn pale. Even in her dreams, she didn't expect Chu Yang to be able to regain his vigor so quickly. She hurriedly begged for mercy. I can't take it. Chu Yang straddled his horse and looked down from above. Then tell me, will there be a next time? Tai Butian looked at him with a red face and gritted teeth. She said angrily, definitely not. Chu Yang nodded. His body suddenly bent down and he said, all right. She slowly moved her waist forward. In a panic, Tai Butian shouted, Qian, quickly come and save me. Wu Qianqian couldn't even wait to protect herself. How would she dare to save her? It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. She wanted to take this opportunity to get off the bed quietly, but the moment she moved, she was hugged by Chu Yang. Trying to run? If you don't give me an answer today, neither of you can get off this bed. If you don't agree, then we can only have fun today. After a long, long time, after another storm, Chu Yang was extremely satisfied and chuckled. Under Minister Chu's extremely violent attacks, the two women were finally forced to sign an agreement. They agreed to Great Manor Master Chu's licentious and tyrannical request. After a long time, the two women gritted their teeth and put on their clothes. They only felt limp and sore all over their bodies. The gaze they looked at Chu Yang with was even more furious and hateful. This guy is simply an animal, a beast. It was a never-ending torrential downpour and stormy waves. Who can stand him? Fortunately, there is still Qian Qian. Fortunately, there is still His Majesty. The two women thought so in their hearts. The two women who finally recovered had a frosty look on their faces. Their expressions were cold and solemn, and they completely ignored Chu Yang. Even if they didn't consider the exhaustion of their physical strength, just the shyness and the alliance between them made the two women feel so ashamed that they wanted to crawl into a hole and crawl into it. Even in their dreams, they didn't expect that they would actually sleep together with this beast. In fact, today was just a beginning. Another day. At this point, even when the two women occasionally looked at each other, they immediately turned their heads away. Then, their pretty faces flushed and they were extremely uneasy. Thinking of how their most embarrassing side was clearly seen by another person, this kind of embarrassment, this kind of absurdity, almost completely overturned the two women's previous understanding. What was even more frightening was that in the future, there would probably be more like this, and it was very likely that other women would join in. At least one Jianghu wouldn't be able to escape. Cough? Could this be the legendary Immortal's day? Great Manor Master Chu stretched lazily as he walked out. He shook his hips, waist and neck, and his face looked like a weasel who had just eaten chicken. A certain someone was addicted to it, and even signed an agreement to fulfill his great wish. How could he not feel refreshed and happy? Humph! The two women were embarrassed in their hearts at the same time. Their faces were full of anger as they turned their faces away. Thinking back to those days, both of us were at the pinnacle of the world. We commanded the entire world. We were in charge of life and death. We were heroes who looked down on the common people. How could we sleep together with you like this? And you're still acting so, humph. That I say, Qian. Chu Yang knew that the two women definitely couldn't accept everything in their hearts. He ignored the two women's frosty faces and said to himself, "Let me tell you, we're very short on rooms now, and we're very free. We don't have any extra rooms for you, so you can stay with Tian for the time being. Anyway, such a big courtyard is enough for the two of you to live in. You two have reunited after such a long time, so you should be affectionate. Yes, you can sleep together in bed. What a wonderful thing. I can't wait for it to happen. Beautiful scenery, a good family, and a full moon. You can be close to your bosom friends, whispering and speaking freely. Under the moonlight and flowers, you can take care of each other, protect each other, and exchange ideas. That would be such a wonderful thing. Just thinking about it makes me envious, jealous, and eager to participate in it." Chu Yang shamelessly fantasized for a while. Speaking of the thickness of his skin, Minister Chu was definitely at the peak of perfection, unparalleled. Such a big courtyard, hundreds of acres of land, and Wu Qianqian couldn't stay in it? Only Great Manor Master Chu could say something like that. Good? What's good about it? What's good about it? Do you think we don't know what kind of intentions you have? Tai Bu Tian said coldly, "Letting me stay with Qianqian, I'm afraid the biggest convenience is to make it convenient for a pervert like you, right? How can you say that about me? You've hurt my heart too much." Chu Yang widened his eyes. "Am I that kind of person? Am I that kind of person in your heart?" Tai Bu Tian's almond eyes widened, full of anger. "Fine, I'll let you say it yourself. What kind of person are you? You say it." Chu Yang said with awe-inspiring righteousness, "I, your husband, am naturally a righteous man." The two women looked at each other, stunned and speechless for a long time. After a long while, Wu Qianqian said, "A righteous ruler? Do you believe what you're saying?" Chu Yang chuckled and said, "Why wouldn't I believe it? Don't you think I know what kind of person I am? Even if I don't know, how can the two of you not know?" The two women were dumbfounded again. They never thought that there would actually be such a shameless person in this world. Tai Bu Tian said fiercely, "Fine, since you call yourself a righteous ruler and are so righteous, Then shouldn't you do something that a righteous ruler should do? You also said that our conditions are limited, and our rooms are even smaller. This room belongs to the two of us. You're not allowed to enter in the future. Hurry up and do those righteous ruler things. The two of us won't disturb you from doing your business. Chapter 2082. How thick-skinned was Chu Yang? His expression remained righteous as he said, "Just make the room smaller. Make it smaller, I won't mind. Both of you are my women. It's proper for me to work with both of you." In order to emphasize, he even emphasized the word, certain. The two women blushed even more. Their beauty was truly out of this world. Wu Qianqian said, "You asked us to do that just now. That's also proper." Of course it's proper. If it wasn't proper, would you have agreed? Both of you personally promised and agreed to it just now. It can be seen that it's proper. Chu Yang grinned. You still dare to say it? You still dare to say it? Thinking of how they were forced to agree just now, the two women felt hot all over. Forget it, forget it. I'll leave this small world to the two of you for the time being. Chu Yang turned and slipped away. I'll go ahead and take a look first. Before the two women could protest, Chu Yang reached out and touched Tai Butian's soft breasts and Wu Qianqian's perky buttocks. The two women screamed. Chu Yang laughed. This is so soft, this is so big, both are so bouncy. His smug expression disappeared in a flash. The two women looked at each other. Their faces were red and didn't fade for a long time. Facing this woman who was sharing a man with them, both of them felt a little complicated. Their eyes flickered a few times and they smiled bitterly at the same time. You. Both of them opened and closed their mouths at the same time. You first. You first. Again, both of them opened and closed their mouths at the same time. The two couldn't help but look at each other and laugh at the same time. This laughter seemed to have completely broken the stiff atmosphere. Your Majesty, what should we do now? Wu Qianqian frowned. Tai Butian also smiled bitterly at this. What should they do? What else could they do? They could only do it that way. The two women were very opinionated and had their own ideas. When faced with such a situation, although they were still discussing it verbally, it was just a kind of subconscious psychological barrier that they couldn't accept for the time being. It was completely different from the actual decision. There's no other way. Anyway, there's nothing I can do. Tai Butian shook her head. According to Chu Yang's temperament, even if we resist, it'll be of no use. We'll only invite even greater suppression. Don't forget that he can use shameless and hooligan methods to achieve his goal. Can you be more shameless than him? Wu Qianqian blushed and said, even if there's no other way, we have to think of some countermeasures. Don't tell me there's no other way and we just let him do whatever he wants? What would happen then? Tai Butian snorted and said with a sidelong glance, if you don't let him do as he pleases, do you think you'll be able to deal with him yourself? Since you've become his woman, accept your fate. Wu Qianqian's face reddened to her ears. She recalled Chu Yang's beast-like charge and his seemingly never-ending vigor. She couldn't help but feel weak all over. She couldn't help but admit that she couldn't face such an energetic madman alone. Even he and Tai Butian were barely able to cope with it just now, let alone himself. If he was alone, then it would be terrible. Forget it, just accept your fate. Besides, Tai Butian said indifferently, you also looked like you enjoyed it a lot just now. You were moaning so loudly and wantonly. Wu Qianqian was so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. She said angrily, who are you talking about? Are you talking about yourself? You started moaning when he pressed down on you just now. You even fainted in the end, right? You closed your eyes and moaned. You don't know shame and still have the cheek to talk about others. Tai Butian pounced on her bashfully. Watch me beat you to death, you little W***re who's full of nonsense. Wu Qianqian didn't want to be outdone. She immediately retaliated. The two women tangled together. Not long after, their hair was in a mess and they were panting heavily. But with this commotion, it also meant that this matter had become a foregone conclusion and was accepted. After a long time. Okay, let's talk about something serious. Tai Budian tidied her clothes. Qian, our situation hasn't been very good during this period. We've just come up and our foundation is especially unstable. Since you're here, you can help me. I can also heave a sigh of relief. Wu Qian blushed. What can I help with? Didn't you already help me? Wu Qian wasn't as sensitive as Tai Budian. She was a first-time wife and would habitually extend everything to a certain special aspect. You're really a little lecherous woman. Tai Budian pursed her lips and said in a low voice, let's not talk about other things. Didn't you manage the Heavenly Armament Pavilion in Chu Yang's place before? Now, we can just follow the rules as usual. You have experience in this area. It's completely effortless. We can make the best use of your talents. Then tonight you still want to run away at night? Tai Budian sighed. Wu Qian's cheeks flushed red. Besides, we can't give up on our cultivation. We must improve as quickly as possible. Tai Budian's gaze was focused. She said indifferently, although you and I are women, we once controlled the world. If women like us blindly stay behind men and seek protection, then how can we accept it? Wu Qian nodded deeply. What level are you at now? I should be at the human level now. Tai Budian said, if it weren't for Chu Yang's large amount of elixirs and the fact that he changed my muscles and cleansed my marrow every day, it wouldn't have been easy for me to reach this level. Although I'm at the human level, I'm still far from a real expert. What about you? Tai Budian asked Wu Qian. I just woke up. How would I know what level my cultivation is at now? When I was unconscious, I was only at the 5th tier of the martial saint level. Now, Wu Qian frowned and said hesitantly, since I woke up this time, I can feel that the power in my body has taken a big step forward. But I'm really not sure what level I've reached. Circulate your energy and let me see. Tai Budian said with a trace of fantasy. After a long while. Oh my God. How is this possible? It's impossible. Tai Budian exclaimed. She was completely shocked by Wu Qian. You've actually reached the earth level. This is too unbelievable. Wu Qian, who was opposite her, was also perplexed. She said, I don't know. What earth level? Looking at the faint yellow light emitted from her body, Wu Qian also felt a little dizzy. How would they know that in the process of reversing life and death, Chu Yang had used a large amount of energy and elixirs? During the period when Wu Qian was unconscious, Chu Yang had fed her countless heavenly treasures. The spring of life that others yearned for was not cherished by Wu Qian at all. She directly treated it as her daily drinking water. There was also that super heavy pill and a piece of resurrection grass that was more than 150,000 years old. They completely stimulated the medicinal power in Wu Qian's body and completely reformed her meridians. Very little of the medicinal power hidden in her body was wasted, and it was converted into Wu Qian's own cultivation. This allowed Wu Qian's cultivation to reach the heavens in a single bound. But Wu Qian herself did not know all these. Tai Budian naturally did not know either. In fact, even Chu Yang himself was a little confused. Unless the sword spirit helped to analyze from the beginning, only then would it be possible to understand the whole story. Otherwise, it would be a complete mystery. Looks like I need to speed up my cultivation, Tai Budian muttered. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and her face suddenly turned red. She said, Qian, I remember your master and his wife's martial arts. Wu Qian was very smart. She immediately understood what she meant. She said with a red face, you mean that moon breeze dual cultivation technique? Tai Budian's face was flushed red. She said, since that can't be avoided, why don't we just use it for cultivation? This is greatly beneficial to the three of us. Then, Wu Qian couldn't suppress her embarrassment. She lowered her head with a red face. Her eyes darted around a few times before she bit her lip and nodded slightly. That night, Chu Yang could really be said to have enjoyed all the luck in the world. Moreover, the effects of the moon breeze dual cultivation technique when cultivated by people like Chu Yang, Tai Budian, and Wu Qian were actually super immediate. In just one night, The three of them felt that their cultivation had solidified a lot. Moreover, there was a faint feeling that they were advancing rapidly. This was especially true for Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian. Both of them had special physiques and extraordinary talents. So, this feeling was especially intense. As for Tai Budin, although her aptitude was slightly inferior to the other two and was slightly slower, the icy heart jade bone physique was also an extremely rare physique. Even in the entire heaven circuit, it was considered a peerless talent. It was even better than those youths who had been upgraded by Chu Yang's magic treasures. However, Tai Budin started to feel a little anxious. Her cultivation was already inferior to the two of them in the first place. Now, she was falling behind step by step. How could this be? An emperor should have the dignity of an emperor. Even though she was a woman, her dignity was still the same. Therefore, in the end, Tai Budin couldn't care less about her shyness anymore. She pestered Chu Yang to cultivate crazily. Naturally, Chu Yang would never refuse such an invitation. Later on, due to a certain someone's stubbornness, Tai Budin actually fainted in the process of cultivating. It was obvious that Minister Chu had put in a lot of effort in his practice. Chu Yang hugged the beauty in his arms. The two of them slept peacefully in each other's arms. In the Chu clan's courtyard, in the shade of the small courtyard where Tai Budin stayed, brother who was lying comfortably on the ground. Ever since he had digested the 20 souls of purple crystal that Chu Yang had given him, he had taken the money to resolve the problem. Now that his cultivation had recovered, brother who naturally had to shoulder the heavy responsibility of protecting Tai Budin. With brother whose protection, Chu Yang finally felt more at ease. The next morning, Chu Yang had just woken up when someone suddenly came to report that a Duke Yun Tian had requested an audience. Yun Tian? Chu Yang was puzzled. What is he here for? Chu Yang was extremely wary of this person. In these few days, the invisible pressure in his heart had been increasing, causing Chu Yang to be constantly paranoid. However, he didn't discover anything out of the ordinary. Chapter 2083. The black fog let out a muffled groan, followed by a low scream. Then, it dissipated, revealing the black-clothed elder and Yuan Shetu. There were 3 wounds on Yuan Shetu's body that were bleeding profusely. Although the saber didn't really cut his body, the elder was still a little slower. The 3 saber energies had already severely injured Yuan Shetu. The 3 wounds exposed his internal organs. It could be clearly seen that Yuan Shetu's internal organs were already broken. With such injuries, he was definitely going to die. Bang! A small purple jade-like puppet in front of Yuan Shetu's chest suddenly shattered and fell to the ground, turning into powder. From the powder, a wisp of black light shot up into the sky. Yuan Shetu, who had been unconscious and on the verge of death, was no longer bleeding from his wounds. Even his pale face was gradually returning to normal. It's a substitute puppet. Lightning Snake's pupils shrank. Yun Tian also showed a surprised expression. He didn't expect that the joint attack of the 3 sabermen could actually kill Yuan Shetu once. A substitute puppet, as the name suggested, was a heaven-defying treasure that could block a fatal injury for its master. A substitute puppet wouldn't be activated for a normal injury that wouldn't endanger one's life. Once the substitute puppet was activated, it proved that Yuan Shetu had already died once. Therefore, the substitute puppet would be activated and die for him. This was the greatest function of a substitute puppet. This function was really heaven-defying. The elder who came later was trembling all over. His face turned green and white. He had already blocked the 3 sabermen, but he still couldn't block the saber energy that was full of death. This was already a great dereliction of duty. Little, you're so vicious. How dare you? The elder turned to look at Chu Yang, his eyes gloomy. It seemed that he was about to launch a desperate counterattack. Chu Yang stood up leisurely. He didn't even look at Yuan Shetu, let alone the elder. He said to Yun Tian casually, "Brother Yun, you came at the right time. Tomorrow night, Heavenly Armament Pavilion will hold a second auction. There are priceless treasures, legendary weapons, medicine that can bring the dead back to life, and some super treasures that you can't imagine. Please help me inform the various sections. Yun Tian and the elder were startled when they heard this. The elder was about to make a move, but he stopped. Chu Yang said lightly, "But Brother Yun, please inform everyone that Mo Yun Tian won't be part of this auction. If Mo Yun Tian is alone in the auction, this auction will be cancelled immediately." This? Yun Tian was startled. "Brother Chu, this matter, please reconsider." "There's no need to consider." Chu Yang's eyes shone with a cold light as he said coldly, "In addition, if Brother Yun's message isn't delivered, then Extreme Heaven's qualification will also be revoked. This is a permanent cancellation. Brother Yun, do you hear me?" Yun Tian was taken aback. He quickly smiled bitterly. "Brother Chu, I'm afraid you've misunderstood this little brother. Today's matter was truly unexpected." Little brother was also extremely shocked. "I hurried over to stop it, but I was still a step too late. It was greatly unexpected. Everything—" Chu Yang smiled faintly and interrupted Yun Tian's explanation. His voice became even more elegant as he said, "Brother Yun, the word idiot is not engraved on my forehead, and neither is the word idiot on your forehead. You and I are well aware of what happened today. However, now is not the time for us to fall out with each other. So, if Brother Yun is smart enough, you should be more honest. Why waste those unnecessary spittle?" Yun Tian's face showed a trace of anger, but he shook his head and smiled bitterly. He naturally knew what Chu Yang meant. "I even dared to kill Yuan Shetu on the spot. Then, do you think I don't dare to kill Yun Tian? Since I've already been impulsive once, what's the harm in being impulsive a second time?" This sentence was obviously warning Yun Tian. "If you want to behave atrociously, I'll still accompany you. I'll accompany you to the end." After saying that, Chu Yang smiled faintly. He turned his head and looked at Yuan Shetu, who was still in a state of shock. He chuckled softly and slowly raised one hand. He pointed his index finger at Yuan Shetu's forehead and said clearly, "If you don't die today, your ancestors' graves will be spitting out smoke. Yuan Shetu, I'll kill you with my own hands in the future." Chu Yang's tone was cold, and his eyes flashed with crazy killing intent. His gaze was like lightning. Yuan Shetu's current cultivation was undoubtedly much higher than Chu Yang's. But at this moment, he didn't dare to look into Chu Yang's eyes. He was intimidated by Chu Yang's aura and could only turn his head to avoid the sharp edge. But when he realized that he was showing weakness, he hurriedly turned his head and wanted to retort. But he heard Chu Yang's cold laughter. The black-robed elder on the side said angrily, "Little one, you're so vicious and rampant. Our ghost hunter will never let you go." Chu Yang slowly turned around and looked at him indifferently. He sneered and said, "Now I'll say it in front of you. Your ghost hunter is just a fart in front of me. Do you dare to kill me? Do you dare to touch me?" The elder gritted his teeth, but he really didn't dare to move. Although Chu Yang almost killed Yuan Shetu just now, although Chu Yang clearly said that Mo Yun Tian couldn't participate in the auction because of discrimination and humiliation, he really didn't dare to move. Because this auction was what all the super sects were looking forward to. They wouldn't allow anyone to destroy it. If he killed Chu Yang now, he would probably be besieged by all the big sects. And he would also have to face the full force of the Eastern Royal Heaven's official forces. If it really reached that stage, the people of the Ghost Hunter would probably be annihilated here. He couldn't bear such a serious consequence no matter what. So he was so angry that he was about to explode, but he couldn't move at all. He didn't dare to move at all. Then Chu Yang looked up to the sky and laughed coldly. He turned around and strode away without hesitation. A cold voice sounded and two words fell like ice beads, "See the guests out." Then, the three great swordsmen snorted and sheathed their swords at the same time. They looked at the three people coldly and left without saying a word. "This is too much." The elder who came later was furious. "He doesn't even put our ghost hunter in his eyes." Yun Tian looked at him with pity and said indifferently, "He doesn't even put our Sky Sword Alliance in his eyes, let alone your ghost hunter. What qualifications do you have for him to put you in his eyes?" The elder said angrily, "Are we just going to let this matter go like this? Yun Tian said indifferently, unless you can represent your ghost hunter and also bear the risk of going against the other 8 big sects. Otherwise, before the auction ends, no one will allow anything to happen to Chu Yang. If you don't want to let it go like this, we can only let it go like this. Can you? Do you dare? So, everything will have to wait until the auction ends. Yun Tian turned around and left. Remember, if you dare to do anything during this period, our extreme heavens will be the first to kill you all. Today's matter was very different from his original plan. But Yun Tian could only do so. Although there was suspicion of changing orders and it was inevitable that his credibility would be bad, for the long-term plan of thousands of years, Yun Tian knew better than anyone how to choose. Yun Tian, wait a minute. Yuan should have finally caught his breath. Yun Tian slowly turned around. What's the matter? Yuan should have stared at him. This Chu Yang, I'm afraid he's not as simple as just the shopkeeper of an auction house, right? He finally felt that something was wrong. Yun Tian laughed and shook his head. Does Brother Yuan think that Chu Yang is still the son of the great celestial emperor? Brother Yuan should have investigated Chu Yang's news clearly. Otherwise, I'm afraid you wouldn't have come today, right? Information is information. Yuan should his eyes flickered with black light, and he looked a little ferocious. Yun Tian, did you dig a hole for me? A small auction house shopkeeper would definitely not have 3 celestial being level experts protecting him. Not to mention in a remote place like Wuxia City. The moment the 3 great swordsmen appeared, Yuan should have instantly understood. But at that time, everything was too late. The hatred was already irreconcilable. Originally, he had thought that he had already given enough face by discussing with Chu Yang, a person from such a small place. As for women, weren't they just playthings? Handing over a plaything could curry favor with him, who was a super big shot to Chu Yang. Why not? So, Yuan shoulda didn't have any scruples from the beginning. But he never thought that he would punch an iron plate full of barbs. If someone said that Yun Tian had never schemed against him, Yuan shoulda wouldn't believe it even if he died. Not to mention that Yun Tian's attitude had taken a 180-degree turn, which made Yuan shoulda even more convinced that he had been cheated by Yun Tian. Dug a hole for you? Yun Tian smiled faintly. Are you worthy? He turned and left. His clothes fluttered, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yun Tian, I'll remember you. From now on, you and I are irreconcilable. I, Yuan Shutu, will definitely repay you generously for today's matter. Yuan shoulda gritted his teeth. I'll wait for you. Yun Tian's voice came from the wind. From now on, the 2 young leaders completely broke off their relationship. Both of them knew that after this matter, the 2 super sects of heaven and earth would no longer have the chance to be friends. This Chu Yang is probably not very simple. The black-robed elder sighed. Could Chu Yang be the son of the great celestial emperor? This sentence was originally said by Yun Tian. Yuan Shudu repeated it at this moment, filled with a kind of ruthlessness. No matter who he is, when the soul-suppressing stone incident is over, I will take Chu Yang alive on the road. I want to play with his wife in front of him. Play with him for a generation. Let him see for a generation. Not to mention that Yuan Shudu's anger was soaring to the sky. He turned his anger into endless imagination, fantasizing about how to deal with Chu Yang and everything related to Chu Yang in the future. Chu Yang's anger was also soaring to the sky. This time he was really angry. Although he knew that the 2 super sects of heaven and earth were definitely not people he could afford to offend, and also knew that the so-called mysterious expert entrusted the auction could only protect him for a while, Chu Yang couldn't care so much now. Chapter 2084. Chu Yang imagined the demeanor of this saint back then and couldn't help but be impressed. Enchanted. If this saint was me. After being severed by the sword, the entire upper half of the mountain flew out just like that and landed on one side. It wasn't even intentional. Looking at the distance between the 2 mountains, the sword spirit's face twitched as he continued to narrate the shocking facts. Lord Swordmaster, you may not know this, but there's a huge difference between having an expert on a mountain and not having one. The sword spirit murmured. The hardness of this mountain back then was probably more than 1,000 times harder than it is now. Especially when facing an enemy, it should be even more terrifying. Chu Yang opened his mouth wide and shuddered in fear. What kind of strength did he have to be able to do that? Could he really go to such a level? Those past events are too distant for us. Let's search the foot of the mountain first. Chu Yang took a breath and expelled all the shocked emotions in his heart. However, he already had an intuitive understanding in his heart. Damn it, the Shui Leihan that I scold every day is actually such a terrifying existence? Without comparison, I really can't tell. The two of them went along the way and saw that some parts of the mountain were already covered with grass and some shrubs. However, there wasn't anything special about it. On one side, there was a mountain path with white jade railings and green jade steps winding down. Chu Yang and the sword spirit went down the steps. They had just gone down 2 steps when the sword spirit suddenly trembled all over. Looking at the dense trees on both sides, he was in a daze for a while and murmured, "Kanglin wood? The entire mountain is actually planted with Kanglin wood." Kanglin wood? What's that? Chu Yang asked curiously. 150,000 years ago, the Kanglin wood was an extremely rare type of wood. Speaking of which, there is nothing special about this type of wood, but its texture is extremely hard. Not to mention ordinary steel, even star steel may not be able to compare to the hardness of the Kanglin wood. Therefore, as long as the conditions permit, most people would use the Kanglin wood as the handle of their weapons. However, later on, everyone began to realize that although the azure wave wood was hard enough, it was easily corroded. Therefore, it was gradually eliminated. But very coincidentally, there was an unexpected discovery. The core of the azure wave wood was actually all purple. It was very dazzling and didn't decay as easily as the other parts. Because of this, the core of the azure wave wood was collected by various big worlds to be used as a material to make coins. However, later on, it was discovered that the core of the azure wave wood could be easily imitated. Therefore, Star Dream Iron was added to make purple cloud coins, and so on. The sword spirit took a deep breath. "Lord Swordmaster, there's so much Kanglin wood here, and all of them are at least hundreds of thousands or even millions of years old. It's definitely a huge fortune." Chu Yang grinned, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Big brother, wake up. Do you think that once this news gets out, I'll be able to occupy it?" The sword spirit was stunned. He said dejectedly, "Yes, this stuff belongs to the government. No private person can occupy it." Chu Yang said calmly, "That's why I didn't think about it. Otherwise, I'd be even more disappointed." Suddenly, he kicked a big tree and scolded, "Damn it, there's so much money in front of me. It's gone just like that. You clearly know that I am always short of money, yet you still come up with such a pile of things to ridicule me. Oh God, are you addicted to playing with me? Really?" The sword spirit was stunned. "You call this not being disappointed? Not taking it to heart? But that bastard Shui Leihan wants to take all these from me. No matter what, he has to give me some benefits. Otherwise, I'll cut them all with my sword. If I can't get any benefits, no one else can either," Chu Yang said fiercely. Suddenly, his eyes widened. What's that? How powerful was Chu Yang's kick? That azure wave wood under his feet shook violently. Suddenly, something fell from above and smashed onto the ground with a poof. Lingji! Looking at the thing that was originally snow white and had broken into 8 pieces in front of him but had turned purplish red, Chu Yang was dumbfounded. "This works too?" He couldn't help but look up. "Are you an idiot?" The sword spirit had already rushed over to pick up the Lingji. With a pained expression, he said, "This is the snow jade purple heart Lingji that can only grow on azure wave wood. How can it be smashed just like that? This is the purest heavenly treasure, and it's even something that's hundreds of thousands of years old. You wastrel, you don't know anything. You're really going to piss me off. This can be considered a blessing in disguise. If the people of this sect were still around, how could such a snow jade purple heart Lingji be preserved until now?" While complaining, the sword spirit also felt somewhat fortunate. Fortunately, this sect had been sealed. Otherwise, Where could they find such a good thing in the current heavenly imperial court? Speaking of which, the sword spirit's complaint was completely without reason. It was purely a pity that such a good thing had been ruined. After all, Chu Yang didn't do it intentionally. Although young Master Chu didn't know anything and was inexperienced, he wasn't that kind of wastrel, wasn't he? But after this incident, Chu Yang became even more careful. His eyes were shining. It can't be that only one tree has this thing, right? There are so many here. There should be many more. There must be. He simply released the tribulation sword and let it search for it on its own. This would be incredible. But there's another one. There's a super seal wort here. There's actually a red ginseng here. It's at least hundreds of thousands of years old. The exquisite blood ginseng here has actually produced ginseng essence. It's another snow jade purple heart Ganoderma. It seems to be even older than the previous one. Here, and here, they hadn't even walked 1/5 of the way down the mountain when the sword spirit stopped calling out. In the beginning, Chu Yang had been making a fuss about nothing. But he had become indifferent to it. Later on, he had become indifferent. Because there were really too many good things here. There were so many that they couldn't collect them all. If it weren't for the tribulation space supporting them, Chu Yang and the sword spirit would probably feel heartache. With just the two of them, they couldn't even collect the most precious things. This was a mountain that hadn't been visited by humans for at least 400,000 to 500,000 years. One could imagine how many good things could be produced here. As the saying goes, it was really innumerable. Moreover, this mountain wasn't a mountain in the ordinary sense. It was the heart mountain of the godly source realm, the place where super sects gathered. The abundance of spiritual qi had long reached an appalling level. It was undoubtedly easier for treasures to be produced on such a mountain. Chu Yang kept throwing things into the tribulation space. The 3 medicine spirits inside happily transplanted them. Only ginseng was given special treatment. No matter if it was blood ginseng, jade ginseng, ordinary ginseng, or exquisite ginseng and so on, dozens of each kind of ginseng were collected. The 3 medicine spirits had to first absorb a certain amount of essence from each ginseng. After confirming that there was at least a portion of essence in all the ginseng in the tribulation space, the rest were directly devoured by the 3 medicine spirits without any hesitation. In other words, a huge portion of ginseng that was harvested this time turned into dried radishes in the blink of an eye. At the beginning, the speed of devouring was still somewhat slow. But later on, as the medicine spirits' abilities continued to evolve, they could devour anything in the blink of an eye. Of course, although the medicine spirits were eating happily and contentedly, there were some things that they didn't know. All the elixirs that had been selected by the tribulation sword had actually already been absorbed by the tribulation sword in advance. In addition, the tribulation sword had another great advantage. It wasn't picky about its food. For example, when it encountered a large bunch of ginseng, the tribulation sword would even suck up all the ginseng that had just sprouted for 1 or 2 years. Wherever the tribulation sword passed, not even a blade of grass was left. No medicine was left behind. Because those that couldn't be taken away, or those that were disdained to be taken away, were all directly sucked dry. Heavenly treasures instantly turned into withered grass. So it wasn't that not even a blade of grass was left behind. It was more appropriate to describe it as withered grass everywhere it passed. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The tribulation sword was in high spirits, and the 3 medicine spirits were overjoyed. But the sword spirit and Chu Yang were already somewhat dispirited. Sometimes, when there were too many good things, bending down to pick them up too many times seemed to be a kind of trouble. So tiring. Later on, Minister Chu, who felt tired, directly went down the mountain, leaving the sword spirit and the tribulation sword to search for elixirs. The tribulation sword was responsible for discovering, devouring, and digging, while the sword spirit was responsible for transporting the elixirs into the tribulation space. The 3 medicine spirits waited for the elixirs to come in, and chose to devour, absorb, and transplant them. The 3 sides each had their own duties, and later on, it was somewhat mechanized. No matter how small a mountain was, it was still a mountain. Moreover, how small could a mountain that could be chosen as the core of a super sect's headquarters be? Even with the sword spirit and the tribulation sword, two heaven-defying existences that were beyond human understanding, plundering at an incredible speed, it actually took more than an hour to clean up half of the mountain. If people were allowed to come in at this time, they would probably be so shocked that their eyeballs would pop out. This was too fucking clean. The world-famous realm of God Source, where the soul-suppressing stone was located, didn't even have a single elixir after the seal was opened. There wasn't even any common herbs. There was only withered grass in sight. What the fuck was this? This was simply a miracle. Of course, they still couldn't come in, but Chu Yang, who had already come in, had really discovered a miracle. Isn't this a sect? Wasn't it already destroyed? Where are the people? Even if there's no one, there should be corpses, right? Where did they all go? Didn't they say that there was a divine soul of a tribulation below? Where is the divine soul of a tribulation? Where did it go? Why didn't I encounter anything? Chu Yang was very puzzled about this. The sword spirit also seemed to be puzzled. This was completely incomprehensible. But it was lucky that they didn't encounter anything. If they really did, it would be fatal. Chapter 2085. There were hundreds of cultivators' cave residences on the half of the mountain that served as the foundation. There were pills, secret manuals, weapons, spirit herbs, or rare metals in the cultivation dojo. Chu Yang accepted all of them without hesitation. Since he was already here, he would naturally accept whatever he could. He only left behind some very low-level stuff that the sword spirit had appraised. He couldn't possibly leave nothing behind when he let people in after a few days, right? That would be too obvious. If they suspected that someone had beaten them to it, there would always be trouble in the future. It's here! The sword spirit cried out in surprise. The two of them finally found the answer to the strange matter just now as they walked towards the mountain top. At a certain corner, there was a valley densely packed with corpses. Every bone was sparkling and shiny. The skeletons were as big as mountains. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. The corpses piled up in this valley were probably no less than tens of thousands of people. Chu Yang gently walked over and casually turned over one of the corpses. He turned it over with a crashing sound. Some places automatically turned into white ashes after he turned it over. But a few thigh bones, arm bones, and so on, as well as the skull, were still intact. They had all turned into a kind of texture that seemed to be stone or jade. Obviously, this part of the bones had turned into fossils. Among them, there were many bones that still had their original texture. These were the bones of experts who had reached the heavenly human level when they were alive. Even after hundreds of thousands of years had passed, their bones could still maintain their original texture. But they could no longer recover their vitality. The fatal injuries of these people are actually the same. Chu Yang looked at the bones on the ground, his eyes revealing a look of sincere horror. They were all stabbed in the chest by a sword. I'm afraid it wasn't just a sword. It was sword energy. The sword spirit corrected him. When the sword energy entered the body, it had already shattered the original soul of the person who was attacked. Then, it cut off their vitality. The person who did this is extremely vicious and merciless. He didn't even give them a chance to dissipate their souls. He directly destroyed them completely. With so many people piled up here, the person who did it only used 3 swords at most. The sword chi that was brought up should have the ability to chase after life and lock the soul, killing all of them. After all, the sword spirit had followed Xue Leihan for many years. He more or less had a certain understanding of people of Xue Leihan's level. At this moment, his voice was very heavy as he said, "Judging from the signs here, even if the cultivation of the person who did this isn't as high as yours, I'm afraid it's not that far off." Chu Yang nodded to show that he understood. The calamity sword whistled out and began to plunder and collect spiritual herbs in the valley. Because there were too many experts who had died here, and their cultivations when they were alive had turned into spiritual chi, the quality of the spiritual herbs growing in the vicinity was also extremely high. However, Chu Yang had always felt that such elixirs were somewhat disgusting. Therefore, he had opened up a separate medicinal field for himself. He had also made up his mind that he and his family would not touch the elixirs produced in this field. In the middle of the 10,000 corpses, a dark flower stood in the wind, constantly emitting wisps of black qi. That's the ghost flower. The sword spirit sighed. Only under the premise that many people have died, and under the premise that these dead people's original cultivations are very high, will there be a chance for such a strange flower to appear. I really didn't expect that there would be one here, and that it would grow like a big tree. Ghost flower? The conditions for this flower to appear are so harsh. It must be of great use, right? Chu Yang asked. That's hard to say. I've only heard that the ghost flower can connect the two realms of yin and yang, but I don't know its specific use, the sword spirit said. As he spoke, he looked at the ghost flower with some excitement and muttered, I wonder if there's this and that? This? That? Chu Yang was startled. What's this and that? The sword spirit looked at it for a while and reached out to touch it. Finally, he shook his head in disappointment. Looks like there shouldn't be. Keep them all. This thing should be useful in the future. Even if it's useless, don't leave it here and let others take advantage of it. Okay. Chu Yang waved his hand and was about to put it away when the black fog above the ghost flower suddenly transformed into a clear human face. It bared its teeth and rushed towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang was startled when he saw this. He was about to use his palm to disperse or force back that strange face. But the sword spirit had already rushed forward excitedly. So there really is one. I almost misjudged it. Leave it to me. This thing is a great supplement for me. Then, the sword spirit suddenly flashed high in the sky and transformed into a black phoenix. It opened its big mouth. It spouted out pitch-black ink-colored flames. And it rushed towards the monster in front of it. That monster was caught off guard and its reaction was somewhat slow. It was instantly hit by the black flames of the sword spirit. Chu Yang thought that the two of them would have to fight for a long time. But he didn't expect that the monster would let out a hoarse scream as soon as the black flames touched it. Then, it turned around and tried to escape. Chu Yang heard this scream, and suddenly had a negative feeling that his spirit was shaken. The phoenix that the sword spirit had transformed into chased after the monster relentlessly. Along the way, the black flames seemed to be free of charge. Every time it burned the monster's body, it would evaporate into a pitch-black mist. The black fog would be quickly absorbed by the sword spirit as soon as it appeared. Then, the size of the sword spirit's phoenix would increase significantly. The black flames lingering around the phoenix's body also became more intense and more gorgeous as the black fog was absorbed. That monster didn't have the strength to fight back. Even when it tried to escape, it could only run back and forth around the ghost flower. It seemed that it couldn't get too far away from the ghost flower. This situation naturally made it easier for the sword spirit to chase and intercept it. Later on, the monster let out a pitiful cry, as if it was begging for mercy. However, the phoenix transformed from the sword spirit did not show any mercy. It continued to pounce on the monster ferociously, turning it into a pitch-black fog with a mouthful of flames. Then, it spread its wings and instantly doubled in size. The sword spirit returned to his human form and landed on the ground. He had a satisfied look on his face. He was beaming with joy, and looked like a cat that had just stolen a fish. He looked lazy and a little lustful. What the hell is this thing? Chu Yang asked. Look at your vulgar appearance after eating it. It's really annoying. You don't know shit. The sword spirit was immensely proud of himself. This thing is useless to living people like you. In fact, it will only harm you if you come into contact with it. But, to a soul like me, it has the same astonishing effect as if you had eaten a miracle medicine. This thing is called the 10,000 Souls spiritual body. If it weren't for the deaths of so many experts in this place, the resentment of hundreds of thousands of years would have condensed to form such a good thing. I didn't expect to have such an unexpected harvest this time. I've really struck it rich. Hurry up and tell me what's the effect of eating this thing? Chu Yang said as he put away the ghost flower. To put it simply, I can reconstruct my body and be reborn if I encounter a suitable opportunity after eating this. The sword spirit looked up to the sky and shouted, I've been waiting for this day for 130,000 years. Chu Yang didn't know what was going on. He clicked his tongue and said disdainfully, Isn't it just a chance to live under the sun again? Look at how excited you are. I live under the sun every day, but I'm not as excited as you are. The sword spirit was completely speechless. How can I be the same as you? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavens for saying such words? That's right. Where did that calamity divine soul you mentioned go? We've been here for a long time. How come we haven't seen even a shadow of that guy? Chu Yang frowned. He looked at the top half of the mountain peak and muttered, That place with golden light and purple energy should be the headquarters of that super sect. The sword spirit nodded. It should be. But it seems a little strange. We have been here for a long time. It's impossible for us to be here until now. Why hasn't the soul of calamity appeared yet? He is the most sensitive to the aura of living beings. Why do I have the same idea as you, idiot? It's our luck that we didn't encounter the soul of calamity, but if we do, we won't be able to leave. Just then, a hoarse laughter suddenly came from behind the two of them. Rather than a laugh, it was more like a weird sound made by bones that made one's teeth ache. A gloomy voice that seemed to be floating in the clouds said, I've always been here. It's just that you haven't noticed. The reason why I haven't appeared is because I've been waiting for you to come here. You also know that you won't be able to leave after encountering me. It's just as you thought. Since you've come, don't think about leaving. Suddenly, the voice changed into a strange laughter. It's actually a living person and a soul body. Excellent, excellent. Just in time to save me all the trouble. The sword spirit's face changed dramatically. He exclaimed, It's actually a peak divine soul that has complete consciousness and can communicate with any living creature. We're dead. Chu Yang's face also changed dramatically. When he turned around, he realized that everything he had seen along the way had all disappeared. Even the entire sky was filled with a dark and cold aura of death. Crack, crack, crack. One by one, zombies, with ghostly fire flickering in their eyes, stepped out of this boundless darkness. These zombies were all naked. The muscles on their bodies seemed to have congealed on their bodies. They didn't decay like the other corpses. Some of them were even wearing clothes. Some were holding long swords, some were holding long sabers, some were holding whips, some were holding daggers, and some were carrying a big stick made of unknown metal. And all the zombies had one thing in common. Their faces were all ashen. If it weren't for the ghostly fire flickering in their eyes and the big bloody holes in their throats that were constantly being torn open by the sword wounds, Chu Yang would almost have suspected that these people were all alive. Chapter 2086. Lord Sword Master. The sword spirit was so nervous that he almost stuttered. This is really bad. This is a zombie puppet cultivated after the tribulation godly soul devoured everyone's dissipated original souls. One of the prerequisites to make this kind of zombie puppet is that the cultivation of these puppets must be at least heavenly human-level experts when they were alive. This is really troublesome. This is actually the location of a super sect that is not inferior to the current Ling Xiao faction. Chu Yang's expression became infinitely calm. He said coldly, Whether it's bad or not, we will know in a while. What's the use of panicking now? The more dangerous the moment, the calmer Chu Yang's mind was. Chu Yang's eyes turned. He had already judged the current situation. Without a doubt, there was no chance of winning. Chu Yang and the sword spirit would have died a violent death in less than a round if they had fought normally. In all directions, there were a total of 7 zombies walking over mechanically. They slowly raised the weapons in their hands. There was a sharp whistling sound in the air again. A cloud of gray smoke swept past with a whoosh sound. The dense smoke twisted in the air, and the image of a thin old man in a long robe with a long beard fluttering in the wind slowly appeared. This old man who suddenly appeared was dressed like the people outside. He stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He looked at Chu Yang and the sword spirit with a pair of cold eyes. There was actually a kind of cold and excited expression in his eyes. The sword spirit trembled. He was really scared. He didn't expect to encounter such a desperate situation when he just got the opportunity to become a human again. Could it be that his idea of becoming a human again was against the heavens and the heavens didn't allow it? He didn't expect that this tribulation godly soul was actually a powerful one that had never appeared in history. It had reached the point where it was very human-like. Its cultivation was as if it was alive, and its wisdom was as complete as a living person. This kind of tribulation godly soul was completely capable of fighting against super experts at the saint level. Although its strength was only equivalent to a primary saint, it was already close to a supreme existence in the heaven imperial court. It even had an extra ability compared to a saint in the general sense. It was an almost indestructible soul that couldn't be killed, smashed, or destroyed. It couldn't be hurt at all, nor could it feel pain. Even if its body was completely smashed into pieces, it could be reassembled in the next moment. Moreover, its power was not reduced in the slightest. This was definitely a divine soul calamity that would give even a saint stage expert a headache. If the myriad soul's soul body was a great tonic for the sword spirit, then the sword spirit was also the best tonic for this incomparably powerful divine soul in front of him. The sword spirit and Chu Yang had no power to fight back in front of such an existence. The Calamity Sword Master and Calamity Sword Spirit were already at death's door. How could they avoid death and prolong life? This was not the end of the crisis. The Sword Spirit and Chu Yang discovered something else almost at the same time. The moment the divine soul of the Calamity appeared, they felt a strong restriction. Yes, it was a restriction, not a suppression. If it was a pure suppression, then it would be a specific suppression caused by the other's cultivation, aura, and other aspects. However, the current situation was completely different. His body could still move freely, but it could only move within a radius of 3 feet around his body. His divine sense and internal breath could operate on their own, but they could not extend beyond the radius of 3 feet. But if he wanted to go out, it was completely impossible for his body, divine sense, and internal breath. Even if he wanted to go back to the space of calamity, he could not do so. Judging from this situation, it seemed that the entire space here had been sealed. The sword spirit's face changed dramatically. This time, they were really in trouble. Chu Yang's face also changed a little. He could not even return to the space of calamity. His biggest trump card could not be used directly. This matter was really serious. But he immediately calmed down. In such a vile situation where he was the meat on the chopping board, what was the use of panicking? The more panicked he was, the faster he might die. Even if he really entered the netherworld, it was better to be calm. In other words, this was the legendary dying to save face. But could it really be done like this? How many people in the world would die to save face? Even if they died, they would die in a carefree manner. Why didn't he just kill me directly? Chu Yang thought quickly. Could it be that he wants to know something? This was the most reliable inference Chu Yang could think of. Or, he has not seen a living person here for too long and is very lonely? Another unreliable but barely plausible inference. Or, is there any other reason? It should be like this. If it were me, I would have collapsed long ago if I stayed in a place where I could not get out for hundreds of thousands of years. Loneliness and solitude were the greatest enemies of mankind. Even the divine spirit of the calamity was not exempt from this. Countless thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind, but his face remained calm. Since he did not die immediately, there was still a chance. Although the chance in front of him was very slim, it was still a chance. The crisis might not necessarily be unable to turn into a turning point. As long as the other party had some motive, he might have a chance of survival. The calamity soul that had suddenly floated out waved its hand, and the advancing zombies and puppets immediately stopped in their tracks. They stood there mechanically, motionless, as if they were made of wood and clay. Then, the divine spirit of the calamity walked down from the sky step by step with his hands behind his back. He wore a long robe, and his long beard fluttered in the wind. His face was thin, and his spirit was hale and hearty. This demeanor, this bearing, this was clearly that of a peerless expert, a peerless genius. But from the situation in front of him, no matter how one looked at it, this was clearly a living person. However, this living person was clearly just formed by the smoke. This series of transformations was completed in front of Chu Yang and the sword spirit. Chu Yang's psychological quality was indeed very strong. He could still maintain a calm expression at this time, and even smiled and cupped his fists in greeting. "Senior, we have a great destiny to meet today." The divine spirit of the calamity looked at Chu Yang, and unexpectedly smiled like spring water. He nodded slightly and said, "Yes, yes, you are right. You and I are indeed fated. This old man has been trapped here for hundreds of thousands of years, and now I have finally seen you alive. If this is not a great destiny, then what is it?" The divine spirit of the calamity spoke in a somewhat gloomy and dry voice at the beginning, and even stuttered a little. But after a few sentences, the gloominess in his voice was removed, and he became fluent. This was probably because he had rarely spoken in hundreds of thousands of years. No matter who it was, they would be very lucky if they didn't become mute after hundreds of thousands of years. It was extremely rare and precious to be able to speak like this divine spirit of the calamity. Moreover, the voice of this divine spirit of the calamity became calmer and more amiable, and even more mysterious. At the same time, the shock in Chu Yang and the sword spirit's hearts was even more intense. This person's strength is really terrifying. I really don't know what level he has reached. However, Chu Yang felt more at ease about this change. It doesn't matter even if the strength of this divine spirit of the calamity is stronger than expected. His strength has long exceeded the scope of what I can resist. So, what does it matter if he is a little stronger? On the contrary, he has already created an opportunity for me to turn the situation around by talking to me in such a pleasant manner. The divine spirit of the calamity casually pointed at him, and the sword spirit only felt that there was another layer of imprisonment on him. He couldn't even speak and could only stand there in a daze. "Let's have a good chat now. This little soul is more or less a hindrance here. If it wasn't for the fact that I need to devour his soul, I would have killed him right now." The divine spirit of the calamity smiled faintly, and his voice was clear and elegant. "This junior is very honored to have Elder invite me." Chu Yang laughed. To have the opportunity to have a good chat with Elder is a great opportunity that only comes once in hundreds of thousands of years. There are countless people in the world, and only I can have this kind of fate. Of course, you should feel honored because you have such a heaven-sent opportunity to give your body to me. Your body will be able to shake the world and become a mighty being in the world. You will be able to live forever. How can I not feel honored? The divine spirit of the calamity said somewhat mockingly. Chu Yang said politely, "So this is Elder's plan? I naturally feel honored to be able to give my body to Elder. But may I ask, if I give my body to Elder, how should I give it to you? And after I give it to you, where should I place my soul? I believe that if I give my body to Elder, Elder won't treat me unfairly, right?" The tribulation divine soul chuckled. "Little one, you're quite bold. You're quite whimsical. At this juncture, you actually dare to bicker with this old man and even bargain with me." Chu Yang laughed. "Daring? Of course, bargaining will lead to death, but don't you think you won't die if you kneel and beg for mercy? Since I can't escape no matter what, I might as well fight. If I can get a few words out of you, it's also a bargain. In front of Elder, getting a few words out of you is probably the limit of what I can do." "Good," Paul said. The divine spirit of the calamity revealed a look of appreciation. "You are so young. It's rare for you to be so tough. When I devour your soul, I will let you suffer less. I might as well give you a quick death. But in the end, your soul will still be destroyed and you will never be able to recover. Elder can still think for me at such a juncture. This is really rare." Chu Yang said with inexplicable gratitude, "Elder must have been a good person when you were alive." Others wanted to consign him to eternal damnation, and he actually praised them as a good person. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.